What's up? Ghost Fictions is here, and we're back again. This is the second part of a story where Issei faked his death and left everyone. But before we start, please consider subscribe to the channel and give this video a like. Don't forget to check the description for more informations. Also, this is a translate version, you may find some mistakes, specifically in the character's gender. Issei of course is a male, but this time we have a female volley, and also Issei will have a sister. Now, let's get into part 2. Moments before. The moon slowly returned to its white color while Gabriel hit his wings, but in an unknown area, a purple-haired girl could be seen appearing in a magic circle on a beach, but at the same time a cart could be seen going straight to where Issei's engagement party was, but it was different from the others. Instead of being driven by horses, it was driven by 2 dogs that were the size of a horse. But inside the carriage, a girl with black hair was seen, another with purple hair, and in front of them was a girl with pink hair. All 3 were looking at the moon, but in that 2 different memories came to them, but at the same time they wanted to relive that memory. Maybe for the 2 of them they were happiness, but for the girl on the beach, they were like a dagger in her poor heart that was already shattered. Meanwhile in Germany, the applause of several people could be heard, while Issei could only put on a small smile at being able to release what he had inside. Issei. So in the end you can cry. He said in his thoughts, while Dreg inside him knew who he was referring to. Dreg. Let him be happy, Brad. You decided to be happy with that Crom Crew host, he said to himself, while remembering the day he met a certain girl. Dreg remembered how that girl under mind control had made the brunette fall in love with her, but Issei did everything possible to save her, only for her to realize that her host did not reciprocate her feelings, but instead chose Issei's brother. Returning to Issei. It could be seen how the image of the sea came to Issei's mind, but he could realize that the image of the purple-haired diva, according to his words, was replaced by a girl with black hair. Issei. What did you do to my heart? He asked himself mentally, while remembering the primordial goddess of the night. But it didn't last long, as the image of the diva appeared once again in his mind. Issei. Why can't I get you out of my head? He asked himself mentally, but seeing the scenario, he couldn't help but imagine her for a second. His hands moved to the guitar as the musicians waited for the first beat to know what the current secretary was going to sing. Memories hit his mind, with every second he sang. The first to appear was when he met her in that park where Rainer killed him. How he listened to her sing, well, she was able to express her feelings. She remembered how she communicated with him through a dream, but above all how he tried to go rescue her. As she was released from the mind control, only to see her thank Ryu, that smile she gave him, which was a stab to his heart. But he knew deep down that she was not for him, nor was she something, so he could say something to her, to which he could only look on in silence. In the end he understood that she never loved him, so he could only wish her the best, while he silently walked away. At the same time he remembered how his brother proposed to the purple-haired diva. The which he only wished them the best, since he found love with that girl who darkens the moon itself. She was never for him and she was never for him. Everyone was surprised by that song, but on a beach a girl could be seen lying on the sand while she hid her head between her legs and her hands crossed around her feet. That girl was the descendant of the original Leviathan. It was none other than Ingvald Leviathan. Ingvald. I only bring misfortune to everyone. She said sadly, while tears fell from her eyes, which were red from crying so much. Flashback. Ingvald could be seen crying tears of joy as she heard words that gave her back her will to live. Issei. It doesn't matter who she is, I don't care if she is a danger, I will protect her with my life if necessary, I will be her friend, her confidant, and her family. Those words made Ingvald happy. After that she lost consciousness, only when she woke up she could see the image of a black-haired man. She thought he had said those words. But from afar Issei watched the scene with sadness, while trying not to cry. Issei. Everyone always prefers my brother. He said mentally, with some grace, but those words could feel jealousy. Greg. Partner, don't get carried away by your emotions, you already have someone in your life. If she preferred your brother, leave her. He reproached his partner, to which Issei could only regain some sanity. End of flashback. As she finished remembering, except for Issei's talk, she could only let out a sigh of sadness, remembering that Ryu was not her knight in armor, but was the current secretary. She could only mentally scold herself for being stupid. Her hands began to bleed from the pressure she exerted from being frustrated, disappointed, and sad, because Ingvald was able to have a happy life with Issei. Ingvald. I'm united. She said in her thoughts, while looking at the moon. As she did so, memories of when she began her relationship with the host of Crom Crew came to her mind, but when she turned to look at his brother, she could see him with a face of resignation. He realized that the current secretary was resigned to the fact that he would never be by his side, but as if it were fate itself, he could see how Issei slowly opened up to Momo, but he could remember that the day before he formalized his relationship with. Flashback. She was walking towards Ryu's bedroom, since today she could sleep with him, but in doing so, she passed by Issei's room. She did not pay much attention to it, but then she heard a knock, which worried Ingvild, to which she approached to be able to hear what that knock was. Issei. Damn it. He said angrily, as he watched his guitar break on one side. She heard Issei's voice, which left her curious, but before she could even knock on the door, she could hear the sound of the strings, to which she stopped and got closer to the door, to better hear the sound of the strings it produced. When she finished listening to the song, Ingvild was moved, but she felt that the brown-haired boy was demanding someone from her, but then she saw the door handle, and she accidentally saw the brown-haired boy put the guitar aside, while he picked up a bottle from the cold floor. She couldn't see what the bottle was made of, but he stopped taking the bottle. Issei. This is what I get for being stupid. He said, while throwing the glass bottle to the ground. This scared Ingvild, to which Issei listens. He quickly stands up. Issei. Who's there? He asked, while opening the door, and when he turned to the sides, there was no one. Meanwhile, in the next room, Ingvild was breathing heavily because she was almost discovered by the brunette. End of flashback. After finishing remembering, she also remembered that the next day she saw Momo enter the brown-haired boy's room. While she began to scold him, Ingvild wondered how Momo knew, but she had an idea that the one who told her was Drake, through the mark she had. Ingvild. He loved me. She said sadly, while looking at the sea, but then she heard footsteps on the sand, only to turn around to see a girl with blonde hair staring at her. It was none other than Marana. Marana. You're right, he loved you. She said seriously, while Ingvild, the only thing she could do was hide her head between her legs again. Silence reigned for a few seconds, after which Marana decided to break the silence. Marana. I hope you don't even think about looking for him, he's already made his life without you. She warned him, to which Ingvild got upset. Ingvild. But. She was interrupted by Marana. Marana. No buts, understand, you are going to marry the great bearer of Kromkrua. She said reproachfully, while she said the last thing sarcastically. Ingvild. That's not true. As tears began to well up in her eyes again. Marana. You chose it yourself, you know they are right about your last name. She said seriously, as she left in silence. That those who are descendants, who carry the title of Leviathan are envious, but you only cause pity. She said, as she left from there, while Ingvild slowly succumbed to her illness, having a low mood, which also her defenses, but before fainting she could only sing. In the end the cold ended up winning over Ingvild, perhaps she was immune to it, but being depressed, her body's defenses were low. In the end she ended up fainting, while in the distance she was seen by Marana, but when she moved away, she could see the shadow of another girl. Marana. Take her with you, you decided to be on the side of the factions. She said, as she continued on her way. So you decided to join Issei's peerage, did you finally decide on him? She asked, but his voice could be heard with maturity. Marana. That's right Griselda-san, I decided to be with him, but you know that I prefer to be with the person I love than with some girls with only one brain cell. She said indifferently, while Griselda knew that she couldn't convince her. Griselda. You know that once you become part of Issei's peerage, your friendship with Irina, Zenobia and Gabriel will end. She said, while Marana just let out a sigh of annoyance. Marana. It doesn't matter. She said, which annoyed Griselda, but before she said anything, Marana continued speaking. My friendship with them ended the day they left with that arrogant idiot. She said seriously, maybe she was shy in the past, but Issei taught her to be more confident in herself. Returning to Issei. This one could be seen resting, after singing some songs, while this one was taking in some fresh air. Issei. You can come out of your hiding place Hellcat. He said sharply, while the booster gear materialized in his left hand. At which point a black cat emerged from the shadows, its fur was like the Dark Knight, but this shine, and then took the form of the ex-criminal Kuroka Hellcat. Kuroka. Ice Naya, can we talk please? She begged, while Issei didn't know what to do. Issei. I'm sorry but I don't have time. He said sharply, while Kuroka upon hearing those words, remembered how she said those words to the brown-haired boy, she could only lower her gaze. Greg. Hypocrite, he said to him, while Kuroka wanted to complain, but remembered that she couldn't say anything. Silence reigned between them, but in the end Issei decided to break that awkward silence. Issei. I'm sorry but I have to go sister-in-law, I have to continue with the concert. Those words were like a stake that made Kuroka break into tears. Kuroka. I'm sorry, please forgive me. She said through tears, while Issei could only watch this scene with indifference. Maybe before I would have done everything possible to stop her from crying, but now I only saw this scene with indifference. Issei. Why are you crying, if you said it yourself? He will give me my strong kittens, I don't want to have weak kittens, even less yours. He said seriously, while Kuroka just looked down, while he just turned his back on her. Kuroka. Why? she asked, knowing the answer inside her, but she kept refusing. Issei. You should know the answer well, you decided to be by my brother's side, those words came out of your own mouth. He said seriously, while she didn't know what to do. The words wouldn't come out of Kuroka's mouth, she wanted to deny it, but it was the pure truth, she decided to be with her brother and not with him. Issei. See, you can't deny it, you yourself know that everything I told you is true, don't hurt yourself by trying to fix something that doesn't exist and will never exist. He said seriously, while he saw Kuroka shake her head. Kuroka. But now. She was interrupted by Issei. Issei. Don't come up with the idea that we can have a relationship now, maybe in the past we could have been a couple, but not now. He said without hesitation. Kuroka. I can. She was interrupted again by Issei. Issei. You are going to offer me your body, please have more respect for yourself, I loved you before, but now you will only be my sister-in-law. He said seriously, to which Kuroka was about to slap him. Kuroka. You are an idiot. She said coldly, while she had her hand raised. Issei. I would be angry with you, I would tell you that you are a hypocrite for betraying me with Ryu, but you know something. He said with a smile that gave Kuroka chills. Kuroka. I don't understand. She said confused. Issei. I can't do it. He said, this had raised Aniko's spirits. Since you are not my mate or anything in my life and it will stay that way, there will never be an us. He said, as he raised her spirits with words, he lowered them with the same words, while he left the place, leaving the ex-criminal heartbroken. Flashback. Several people could be seen gathered at the Haidu residence, while Office was chatting with Ryu, who had a satisfied smile at being recognized by a dragon goddess. Issei. It is said that if you don't train that talent it is useless. He thought seriously, while watching his brother boast in front of everyone, while a girl with pink hair just frowned at the hypocrisy. Icon, why don't you claim them? The girl with pink hair asked him. Issei. It wouldn't do any good, they are so focused on hypocrisy, at least I'm not alone. He said with a small smile. It's true, I'll always be here to support you. He said with a smile. Issei. And I for you, may you never forget Mocha. He said with a smile, while giving her a kiss on her forehead. Issei decided to no longer pay attention to his brother's conversation, but when he saw who was approaching him, he didn't pay attention to it. Your growth is also abnormal. Said a voice without feelings. Issei. I'm not interested in what you say, Robber-sama, you said it yourself, you have no interest in a useless person like me. He said, which surprised the Infinity Dragon. Office? Why? She asked expressionlessly. Issei. You are only interested in the growth of the hacker Yuiku and the Darkness Dragon, not that of a useless person like me. He said sarcastically, but before he could speak again, the sound of a slap was heard. Riaz. You better shut up, you're a fucking useless, besides you don't decide if you have a word or not. She demanded respect from the brown-haired boy. But in that Riaz receives a kick in her stomach, which propels her to the wall, while Mocha had a rosary in her hand, while her hair was completely white silver and her red eyes that asked for blood. Everyone was scared, the only ones who didn't feel that bloodlust were Office and Issei. Mocha. Let me remind you, Tomato Hair, that the house belongs to Icon, well you are just hanging around with that bunch of crawlies, before you say that you ordered the house to be remodeled, it is not like that, it was my family, and it is in the name Icon, which he inherited from his grandparents. She said, while Azazel remembering these words was worried that Issei would tell them that they could not stay in said house, and he had no shortage of reasons. Azazel. Come on, calm down. He said, trying to stop Issei from telling them to go away. Issei. You better leave, I have enough with you already. He said coldly, which left Azazel stunned. But Ryu, upon hearing his brother's words, became upset, knowing that he couldn't try anything with Kuroka or Lefei and if possible, something with Office. Ryu. You are a bastard, don't you see that they came here asking for our help, and you deny it to them? He said annoyed, while Riaz and the others were moved by his words. Issei. You see that I'm interested. I point to his face, well a look that shows he doesn't care what happens to them. Valeria. Hahaha, we're not planning on leaving here, if I remember correctly you're still a minor, and therefore this is not your property. She said with a mocking smile, while Issei knew that her friend was very wrong. Issei. Seriously, in that case look at this. He said, while showing him a sheet of paper, which shows that he was already of legal age. And that Azazel looked for a way to help Valeria's team, so they could hide in the Haidu residence. Azazel. Boy, help me hide them please, this can help the alliance. I begged, well Issei was going to say no, but in that he is interrupted by Mocha. Mocha. You will be able to stay, but with certain conditions, if you don't accept them, there is the door. I point to the door. You can leave whenever you want. Everyone was surprised by Mocha's words, but before Issei could complain, Mocha smiled, which infected him. Azazel. What are those conditions? He asked curiously, while Ryu was smiling, but seeing Mocha's smile, he knew it wasn't going to be anything good. Mocha. It's easy, the conditions are as follows. 1. No one will be idle doing nothing. 2. If they want to eat, they will prepare it themselves. That means that if someone prepares the food, it is for him, and it is forbidden for anyone else to prepare the food for him. 3. It is forbidden to use magic for chores. If they mess something up, there is the broom and dustpan. 4. They will all attend Kuo Academy as students or teachers respectively according to their age. 5. If you do not accept any of these rules, you can leave where you came from. These conditions affected the weakest, in this case Kuroka and Valeria, since both were terrible at cooking, and LaFay and Arthur were in charge of that. But before refusing, Arthur and Biku could be seen looking at each other, but they were stunned by the one who answered. Office. We agree. She said expressionlessly, while the two were on the ground, while their souls came out of her mouth. This scene made Mocha laugh, while Issei was rolling on the ground, but the days were slowly passing, where the brown-haired boy became friends with Biku and Arthur, but on the women's side, they treated him coldly. End of flashback. Remembering the scene, a small smile appeared on Issei's face, while a look of nostalgia appeared on his face. But at this, Issei could only turn around, while watching from the corner of his shoulder Kuroka leave the place. Issei. I would have liked to be your pillar. He said to the wind, as he returned to the living room. Everyone was enjoying their food with a smile, while Issei watched this with a small smile, but upon looking closer, several memories came to mind. The memories of how he laughed in the past next to Mocha, but when she died, he thought that he no longer had a purpose to continue living. He was referring to how the leaders were carried away by power, they forgot the people they loved, they lost everything, and those women were in the hands of their brother, as in the case of Penemu, who was in love with Azazel. How she got tired of waiting for an answer from her leader, how she ended up falling in love with her brother. The love she felt was fake. Issei always told Azazel that happiness was right in front of his nose, but he never listened to him. In the past he could feel those jealousies, but whenever he saw his brother with a girl who was next to him, his childhood friend, the princess, the queen, among other girls, jealousy invaded her. He wanted what his brother had at that moment, but in the end he realized that he always had girls who loved him right under his nose. In the end he realized that he always had them by his side, even if it sounds selfish. When he finished singing, everyone was crying because of what he sang, while Issei couldn't take it anymore and ended up crying, while his hand was on his chest, where the heart is located. Everyone was confused to see him cry, since in his dreams he longed to have girls who were by his side, but those tears were not from sadness, they were from joy, since in the end he found girls who truly love him. Flashback. Laughter could be heard in the Haidu mansion, as the Gremory entourage, Valerie's team, and some leaders were laughing, but the atmosphere suddenly became hostile, as Issei suddenly entered, as he had a face like 1,000 demons. Issei. Who let you have this party? He asked his brothers. Ryu. I don't have to give you explanations of what I do, right? He said with irony. Issei. Of course you must give me explanations, since this is practically my house, dear brother. He said, while a murderous instinct emerged from Issei. Saying that Ryu was scared to death, seeing that Issei didn't care that the leaders were there. Issei. I give you 15 minutes to finish your stupid party. He said angrily. Penemu? What's wrong, Brad? You shouldn't be killing renegades. He said with a mocking smile. Issei. See that I care, while pointing at his face, which indicated that he didn't care. Issei. Nobody is going to leave, or do you want us to brand you a traitor? She said with a confident smile. Issei. Do it, but you will be losing your allies, the Akashiya clan, the Slash-Dog team, among other allies. He said with a mocking smile, to which Issei stepped back in fear. End of flashback. Remembering how all the leaders wanted to brand him a traitor, he could only grab the microphone, as anger grew within him. Remembering how his brothers wanted to brand him a traitor, well, the leaders thought about that proposal. About how those people want to fix that mistake, to which Issei just shook his head. Those days he spent alone, where he missed Mocha, while his primitive instincts became present to later cruelly kill renegade demons. The memories of how Ryu proposed to every girl he ever fell in love with, but besides seeing them kiss, they decided to be happy with him. As she sang the last time, her thoughts were seeing the suffering that happened day after day because of her brothers, the leaders of the factions. Seeing this, could only lower their gaze, as did the girls, since they were realizing that Issei told them a million times. Don't come begging for my forgiveness later, because I will never forgive you. Those words were loaded with anger, since Issei told them so, but they never heeded that warning. Imagining chains around him, which subjected him to the biblical factions, to which Issei continued singing. The lies, promises, empty words that I heard a million times that everything was going to be different. He recalled the times he entered the booster gear and how it tried to force him to unleash its curse while the wearers urged him to activate the juggernaut drive. How he tried to control the curse on his own, how he hurt himself so as not to lose his sanity. As he stopped fighting the curse, letting it consume him, but it was a mistake, he was consuming the curse to increase his power. The times when Mocha would sneak around to interfere at the right moment, but she would always lose consciousness. He remembered how he would break his bones from training when he was about to throw in the towel. The times when he wondered why he kept fighting, why he defended them. It was all because of Mocha and Momo, who always helped him improve, seeing their world perfectly, while his own was in pieces. When he finished singing, many of the audience stood up to applaud, while Issei just smiled, but without realizing that while he was singing he had activated a spell. Perhaps the moon was beautiful, but sometimes it could be bad. Little by little the brightness at it became dull, but no one noticed anything. After the engagement party finally ended, some people retired to sleep, but Wilbert said they could stay at the hotel across the street. Among those who retired was Irina Shido. "Irina, what would you tell me if you were still alive?" she said with a lost look while looking at the sky while entering her room to be able to sleep. Meanwhile, after Mio, Momo and Issei's engagement party ended, they were walking to a meeting room that was made by Mio's father, who seemed serious. He walked very calmly. When he arrived at the room, he could see that his guests were already there. "Wilbert, it is a pleasure to know that the leader of the fallen demons," he said calmly as he walked to a chair for him to sit. His daughter, Momo and Issei were behind him with a serious face each. "Wilbert, go ahead, take a seat and let's continue with the meeting," said Wilbert seriously, still leaving his soft side. Issei looked seriously at the features. But before all this, Issei could see how a girl with white silver hair and purple eyes entered, who seemed to have a serious expression. This caught everyone's attention. "Lord Wilbert, your guest has just arrived. It seems that your guest had some setbacks," he said seriously, to which Wilbert could only let out a small laugh. "Wilbert, what are you waiting for? Let her in, someone here is in for a big surprise," he said while glancing at Issei. To which the girl made a subtle bow to leave. This left the leaders with doubt since they had no idea who it was. "Wilbert, you can introduce yourselves, I'm sure they don't know who you are," said Wilbert, making the girl sigh, and he approached the large table. All the alliance leaders, plus Rias, Ryu and Issei were sweating, but on top of that a black-haired girl scared them since they recognized her because she was the goddess of the primordial night. She was the goddess Nyx. "Nyx, it's a pleasure to meet you leaders," she smiled while the purple-haired girl laughed. "You're not going to greet me, Icon, but I can't say the same about them." He said it would be the last. "Issei. Say Ori, but how?" he asked surprised. But a girl further back with a hood was nervous. What would Issei say if he saw her? The rest were tense. Not only was the goddess of the night here, they could also feel the divine energy from that girl. The girl sighed and looked at Issei. In order not to make more drama, he began to relate. He swallowed his words. "From you're not going to greet me, Icon, but I can't say the same about them." He said it would be the last thing, while he looked at Rias, Ryu, Issei and Irina. "Do I know you?" Issei commented seriously, looking at that girl. He felt like he knew her from somewhere. "Athena. Leaders, I tell you right away that if I make an alliance with you, it will be under my terms. I will not allow my people to be used by you," she said seriously, which was a straits, since they practically wanted people to help in the missions that the brown-haired man used to do. But as she was telling the story, Ryu could be seen suddenly holding his head while trying to appear okay. Slowly he began to taste something like iron in his mouth. Ryu covered his mouth and looked. It was blood. Something that worried Ryu. "Wilbert. No problem, we will sign the alliance between the German demon faction and the Greek faction. We hope we can work together, Athena Dono," said Wilbert. But at that moment Ryu could not bear it any longer, so he spat out blood while everyone turned their gaze to where Ryu was. "Azazel. What's wrong, boy?" he asked seriously, but he fell to his knees on the ground while vomiting blood. This worried everyone. "Drake. It seems that his curse has already begun," Drake commented, attracting everyone's attention. This left everyone in doubt, except for Tiamont, Albion and Valerie, who seemed to know what was happening to her. "Drake. How does it feel to have one of your hosts suffer this curse when trying to steal my host's mates?" he said mockingly, while the leaders were surprised by this. "Surziches. What do you mean, Red Dragon?" he asked, scared, seeing that they could lose him. Although they wanted to avoid the arranged engagement, they were not going to be so stupid as to kill him. "You see, Crom Cruich, before becoming a sacred gear in the past, tried to rape the Seraphim Gabriel. As a result, Yahweh put a curse on him. So cruel, but it would be fair. I have no respect for him," said Drake coldly. This left the leaders surprised, as they remembered that Gabriel had a hard time trusting Ryu. Now they understood why. Issei. Hey Ani-chan, you yourself have caused this for your own selfish desires. He said mockingly, as he watched his brother bleed from the mouth. Wilbert. How does the curse end? Commented Wilbert. Greg. The curse not only takes away his power, but those who are carriers connected to Crom Cruach by the soul, make their mates live a life of misfortune next to the carrier of Crom Cruach until death. Said Drake, scaring Surziches. This alarmed the leaders, but Drake's next word sealed the host's grave. Drake. The only one who could cure this curse is the ancient Athena. With her power she removed it in a carrier. If I remember correctly, her name was Sasha, but after the war she disappeared. He said. Knowing this, the leaders were surprised. But Ryu began to feel like he was drowning. Drake knew what happened after the curse took effect. There is nothing I can do but drown you in your own blood. If you want to blame someone, blame Crom Cruach for giving you a curse that you surely did not want. Said Drake. But he didn't wait for one of Ryu's girls to fall to the ground, vomiting. The girl was AKENO Himejima, who had a black mark on her shoulder, which spread throughout her body. Ryu. But she can save me. He barely pointed at Sayori Kido, who just sighed. Sayori. Maybe I'm the current Athena, but I can't do it, since each one has an ability. Mine is the blessing to protect those I love, while hers was the power of wisdom to create seals and remove curses with her presence. She said, to which the leaders could do nothing for them. Greg. Although there is a way. To save Ryu's mates, it means abandoning each one of them. Since the more mates he has, the greater the pain the curse will be. Said Drake. At this, Ryu decided to bite his tongue to avoid saying the words he wanted to. Greg. You prefer to suffer than for them to be free to fall in love with whoever they want. He said, then saw Kaneko fall. The saddest thing is that they should not be marked, just a simple tie, and with that they will suffer, except those who have put aside their feelings for you will not suffer. He said, seeing how Zenobia was now falling. Briaz fell to the ground, clutching her stomach and vomiting blood, causing Surziches to angrily look at Ryu. The bastard was going to let his sister suffer. Dreg. Haha, see leaders, there is your dear hero. Said Dreg mockingly. Issei. Who would have thought that they preferred the bad one and discarded the good one? He said. Well, he saw that Seraphol's mark appeared, but it did not spread like the others. Wilbert. How about we leave the meeting for another time, since they must surely take their members to the hospital? Said Wilbert seriously. He was not bothered by what was happening to them. Issei wanted to laugh, but he held back. But Ryu barely got up. While trying to hit Issei, he only stopped him with his finger, while he watched this scene with pity. Issei. There's no point in fighting someone without honor. He said, while hitting him in the stomach, and he fell unconscious. Ryu. Fuck. Yo. He said as best he could, before falling unconscious to the ground. I was glad to have left the underworld. I would have felt sorry for myself, and ashamed to belong to the underworld. Said Wilbert with disgust as he ended the demon faction. At this, Surziches clenched his fists, as he knew that this was the fault of this one's decisions. While the girl wearing the hood smiled subtly, but she only approached Ryu to give him a kick that made him crash into the ceiling. Take it, damn it. She said, satisfied, but she let her face be seen. At this, Issei opened his eyes wide, since in front of him was his second girlfriend, which was Mocha Akashiya. Issei. Mocha. Issei whispers in shock upon seeing his second girlfriend. Mocha looked at Issei and smiled, approaching Issei to finally kiss him. Everyone was in shock, to say the least. They were petrified, seeing that this girl was alive. But Issei separated from the kiss, then hugged her, while Mocha hid her face in his chest. Issei. But how are you alive? He said, while crying with joy of having her in his arms. Mocha. I will give you whatever explanations you want, just not here, not in front of them. Said Mocha, coldly looking at Ryu's former harem and also at the leaders. Issei. It's okay. He said. He didn't want to get away from her, but then Momo and Mio approached. The latter was nervous about meeting Mocha. The first girlfriend was Rainer, the second Mocha, the third was Momo, and she was the fourth. Mio. H. Hello, it's nice to meet you, Akashiya. She said respectfully. When she separated from Issei's hug, she looked at him with an analytical look. Returning with Irina. Irina was looking at her hands, but then she saw the scene change. A beautiful church could be seen, but looking closer it was the Vatican, but the sounds of bells reached her ears, but out of curiosity she got closer to the door. Irina. What is this feeling? She asked herself mentally, as she was afraid to open the door. Soon he came to see his childhood friend standing next to a girl wearing a wedding dress and holding a bouquet of flowers. Her face could not be seen because of the veil. The father of the church had begun to speak. But looking closer he could see that it was his father, who was holding the Bible, but looking around he could see several people, among them was Zenobia, but looking at her face, he could see that she was looking down. Irina. Zenobia. she said in a low voice. As she got closer her nerves were greater. But she felt a liquid on her hands, which was neither more nor less than blood. As she did so she screamed to the four winds, while the people around her turned to look at her, but this angered Issei, and also the girlfriend. Issei. Irina, why are you here? You weren't invited to the wedding. Issei growls, not happy to see Irina as she could ruin the wedding. This surprised Irina, as she knew they ended on good terms, but then the bride with a veil covering her face appeared. But Irina turned to the side to see Momo and Mio sitting there, but with an angry look directed at her. But then her girlfriend approaches her and slaps her, which knocks her down, but as she does so she closes her eyes for a moment, but when she opens them she can see a completely desolate field. This place brought back bad memories for Irina. Irina. This place. She said scared, while blood was still dripping from her hands, but when she turned to look around, she saw her former mate, before meeting Zenobia. Come on Rin-chan. Call her by the name I used to be able to play with Issei in his childhood moments. Irina was slowly overcome with fear, each memory only scared her, she didn't know why it was happening to her. Did she deserve all this? Irina was slowly overcome with fear, each memory only scared her, she didn't know why it was happening to her. Did she deserve all this? Soon the memory continued to show the next memory that would surely hurt him more. Irina could be seen with her gaze downcast, in front of her was a version of her that followed whatever mission the church gave her. Ancient Irina. Die heretic, my mission was to kill you, since you are a danger to the church. While she buried her sword in the chest of the other girl with the brown-orange hair. No. Not that memory. Damn. Why? I hated that memory. I didn't want this. I didn't want to remember. His former companion. Asuna Yuki. As her former self buried that sword deeper into her partner. It's not funny to see you kill me for the second time, right? Said a voice behind her. This scared Irina, who fell to the ground while she looked at the bride of the church. She lifted her veil, which scared Irina so much that she started to cry, but Asuna decided to step on Irina's hair, who was wearing beautiful white heels. I guess in the end, that's what you really deserve, that and more. You are a traitor and always will be. As much as you don't want to accept it, deep down you are a traitor capable of hurting those around you. Like Issei. She said with coldness and hatred towards Irina. Next to her was a girl with silver white hair and blue eyes, who was holding a gun in her right hand. Looking closer, she could see La Folia, another one of her friends. La Folia. I asked you not to kill her, but your damn faith blinded you, but I still don't understand how you became an angel, if you deserve to be a demon. She said with a mocking smile. When I found out what you did, I didn't know what to think, seeing you kill one of your friends, you're worse than scum. Said he couldn't look her in the eyes because of the disappointment he felt. Irina, seeing that voice belongs to Issei, could only burst into tears. An hour later. Irina could be seen in a room sitting on a chair, her gaze was completely lost, her previously white wings were now completely black as coal. Asuna. You're enjoying the view. She said with a mocking smile, while Irina did not give any sign of life, she seemed dead in life. Asuna. In the end you became what Issei hates with all his soul, a disgusting fallen angel. I guess it's the appropriate end for a religious fanatic who puts her blind faith over friends and family. It's what you really deserve. Said Asuna mockingly. Asuna laughed, as if she had been told the best joke in the world, since Irina had her sword in her right hand, and next to her were the bodies of her parents and the old men from the Vatican, who sent her to kill Issei. Don't compare her to me, at least I apologize, but she. Said a female voice, from behind Irina. Irina could only turn around, but seeing that black hair and purple eyes, all she could see was the tears in her eyes spilling out, as she had no purpose in fighting. Tell me, was it worth all this? Was it worth serving them who gave you nothing but false faith in a dead god? Was it worth throwing away everything that would make you happy? Said the brunette coldly. Irina could only lower her head, saying that he was right, the tears continued to fall. Issei. Shidu, we were like friends, we promised to get married, but you decided to give a chance to a person who didn't change at all. He said mockingly. Asuna. You were like my sister, I knew very well what you would do, but at least you should have killed me quickly, not tortured me like the bitch you are. She said with pity. I hope he's happy with what you got. I hope he finds someone he loves. Although I doubt it. Goodbye Shidu. Said Issei to leave with Asuna, leaving Irina alone there with her black wings. Tears ran down her eyes. Decision he made, seeing how the scene of Ryu asking him for a chance came to his head, he could only scream with helplessness and guilt. Irina. I'm going to kill you Ryu. Was the scream that was heard, while her eyes took on a shine that asked for bloodlust, and she knew who to go to calm said bloodlust. Azazel could be seen taking Ryu, who was losing a lot of blood from his mouth, and his sacred gear could be seen flashing, it seemed like they had a bomb in their hands. The leader saw this with pity, anger and disgust. Surziches. So. Karma touches us. he thought amusedly, but then remembered that this happened to him because of his stupid decisions. In the magic circle straight to the underworld, he was taken to the doctors at Citri Hospital to deal with the girls who also suffered. Right now Ryu had a bad reputation after raiding game with his brother. People began to have doubts about him. While Issei just sighed, creating a magic circle with the Securitate emblem. Wilbert. Kid, even though they turned their backs on you because of your brother, you still care about them, don't you? He thought, watching as Momo, Mocha, Sayori and Nyx left with him in that magic circle. Issei. Being sincere and honest, no. I'm not worried in the least, I'm just going to make it clear that I will never help with your problems again. Said Issei. They will surely come to beg me to save them. So I will say no. I don't care if in the end they hold a grudge against me. Said Issei. This surprised Wilbert, knowing that he could read his thoughts, but before he could say anything, he disappeared in a reddish flash. Citri Underworld Hospital. Doctors and medics could be seen rushing to the emergency room to try to stop the mark from spreading on her body. While Seraphil used a lot of her magic to prevent the mark from spreading, she couldn't take it anymore. She was exhausted seeing that the mark consumed a lot of magic, and in the end she fell to her knees, and the doctors took her away too. Leo. How are the affected ones? He asked, feigning curiosity, which bothered some, perhaps Valerie, Femavali, was not affected thanks to Albion. The doctor gave a sad sigh to look at those present. Among them was Kuroka, who was barely standing to be able to find out about her sister Shirin. Barakiel, who was worried about his daughter. Surziches wanted to know about his sister along with the Patriarch Lord and Lady Phoenix about Ravel. Doctor. That curse is much worse than I thought, we are not used to dealing with curses. Said the doctor trying to find the exact words. Doctor. That curse consumes her from within, devouring magic, so much was the damage that some like Kaneko, Rias, AKENO and Zenobia lost the ability to give birth. They will no longer be able to have children of their own. We did what we could to save her. Said the doctor. Those words affected the leaders too much, but before they could say anything, they could see in the hallways someone entering. When they saw better they could see Griselda, while she was carrying Ingvild in her arms, who was burning with fever, to which the doctor ran to check her, while some present were scared to think if she received Ryu's curse. Doctor. Bring a stretcher, he is relapsing into deep sleep sickness. This alarmed those present, but somehow relieved them, but they wondered why he did not suffer from the curse. Barakiel, seeing how AKENO suffered, vomiting blood, and looked at Ryu being carried by Azazel, could not bear it any longer. Damn you. Barakiel roared, wrapping himself in an aura of holy rays in his fist, hitting Ryu, sending him crashing back into the wall. Free my daughter, you worthless piece of shit. Barakiel roared, grabbing Ryu's neck, but Azazel and Surziches rushed to separate him. The leaders separated them, but Ryu mockingly showed his open mouth, where they could see that he bit his tongue to avoid speaking. Ryu. He hadn't said it as best he could, while the paramedics took him away. At this, Barakiel tried to free himself and hit him. But he couldn't, since he was restrained. Azazel. Calm down, hitting him won't solve anything, calming Barakiel, but he could see Issei. As Ingvild and Ryu were being taken away, one of them had a fever, but Ryu tried not to scream, so they could see that he didn't regret anything. Issei had seen everything and could only shake his head. Drake was right, they were a mess, they couldn't take care of themselves. I see that I came at a bad time. Said Issei with sarcasm that came attracting everyone's attention. Leo was relieved to see Issei, she couldn't stand being in the same room with them anymore. While Sayori and Mocha watched all this with boredom, Momo was another matter, as she could notice some concern in Issei, knowing that he was still worried about Ingvild, while Nick Surziches. Haidu-kun, so you're worried about your brother. He said seriously, but thinking that there was still a chance to save the girls, but especially his sister. Greg. Siskin, you can't be more true. He said to himself. No, Surziches-sama. I don't care if Ryu lives or dies, I just came to see how Mio was doing, since I'm worried that you guys might do something to her to get to me. Said Issei, harshly placing his arm around Mio. This left the leaders with a bad taste in their mouths, but knowing Azazel, Surziches or Seraphil, they got an idea. Surziches. Haidu-kun, we don't intend to do anything to her to get to you. He said, but Issei knew his true intentions by seeing his gaze. Well, with how desperate his faction is when they lose their hero, I thought he would do anything to have me under his thumb. After all, you would do anything for your sister, right? Issei said coldly. That angered Surziches, since he was calling him Siskin, to which he released his demonic aura, but he didn't expect Issei to release his too. The two were side by side, since Issei recovered his 100% power, which was on par with Surziches in his demon form. Surziches. That's bastard, I wouldn't do such a thing. He said angrily, but everyone knew that Issei was right. Issei. Yeah, sure, let's go, Mio. Your father is waiting for you. Issei said, wanting to go, but wait. Issei stopped and looked at Barakiel crying and kneeling, not only Barakiel. also Kuroka and Ravel's parents. They had to swallow their pride to ask Issei for help. "Kuroka. Please help Shirin," she said without the Naya, implying that she was serious. "Irakiel. I know we weren't good to you, but please help them," he said, unable to look Issei in the eyes. "Lord Phoenix. Help them please," he cried desperately, knowing that his daughter could die. "Lady Phoenix. I beg you as a mother to help Ravel," she said, to which the brown-haired boy clenched his fists to the point of making them bleed. Issei couldn't take it anymore. He always helped him, but they never moved a damn finger for him. All I received from them was mockery and humiliation. "Help them," Issei whispers to look with fury. "How did you help me? How can you ask me to help you when you treated me like trash? You deserve everything that happens to you," Issei exclaimed, releasing everything he had to keep inside. The leaders just lowered their heads, but in that Issei releases what he has inside. Well, Mocha, seeing this, sees Momo and nods her head. Momo releases her power, and Mocha lets out her power, at the same time that her hair and eyes change color, as well as her skin. "Momo. They are fucking hypocritical leaders," she said angrily, while the temperature began to drop. "Mocha. You sure think you're superior? You need people to humiliate to feel like the king of the world," he said with his silver hair and his red eyes which were searching for blood. Mocha wanted to speak more, but Issei interrupted her and looked at the leaders with much disappointment. "All of you depended on me so much to the point that you don't know what to do. You can't do it by yourselves. You never contributed anything to the alliance. It always has to be me. You will never be able to understand the efforts of others because you steal the credits and hard work," said Issei, causing more embarrassment and pain. "You are so useless that you can't do a damn thing for your daughters, sisters. You can't do anything without me," said Issei with great disappointment and disgust, looking at Kuroka, Irakiel, the Phoenix. That also applied to the leaders. The leaders themselves wouldn't think about the next words, which annoyed Issei, knowing what they were. "Irakiel. You are no different from your brother, you are a selfish fool," he said, while some affirmed the words, thinking that he was going to say no and saying that he was going to help them. "I see, and I thought I could at least give him some help so that they could be saved from Ryu's curse. Let's go, girls. Let them do it," said Issei coldly. This left the leaders petrified, knowing that anger had clouded their judgment. "Surziches. Wait, Haidu-kun, we didn't mean to offend you." He tried to stop the brown-haired boy from leaving. But it was too late. Issei ignored him as he activated his Sekiryute magic circle. "Let's go," Issei said coldly. The witch Mocha just sighed, while her hair returned to its pink color, but her red eyes turned green. "Mocha. Azazel, I want my rosary back, is that clear to you?" she said, since when she died, she stole the rosary from Issei's things, as she knew, it was thanks to Hades. Issei's girls just approached their circle, which glowed red, and disappeared, leaving the leaders frustrated. As Issei left, they saw the place where Ingvild was. The leaders looked at each other for the last time, and just lowered their heads in defeat. They were going to save them, but well, I hope that their deaths will make him mature once and for all, Issei said, and then left in a magic circle, leaving them in silence. The leaders lowered their heads, knowing that he was not going to give in, but before they could say anything, a light blinded them, revealing Michael and Gabriel. But upon seeing the aura of this, there was no longer the power of light, but a dark presence, while in the backyard was Issei with his mates, and in front of him were Arthur and Sona. Meanwhile, unknown place. You could see several houses, all of which had their lights off, but more specifically we were at a certain house, where you could see a boy with brown and golden eyes, his orange-brown hair. He seemed thoughtful, but more specifically looking out the window at the stars. "It seems that my cousin Issei was right," he said before just looking at the moon for a moment. "Ani-chan, can I come in?" he asked from the other side of the door, but his tone of voice was filled with concern. "Come in," he said, while his sister opened the door and entered the room. "What's wrong, sister?" I asked curiously. "Are you okay, Ani-chan?" she said, to which the boy just turned around and put on a confused look. The girl herself has golden brown eyes and brown hair, but when she saw her brother's gaze, she could only look down. "Because of what happened with the girls," she said, to which he puts on a tired look. "I said it before, they can live their life with whoever they want. I was just, so to speak, their tutor, friend and confidant," he said honestly. "I understand. What do you plan to do now?" he asked curiously. "I'm going to call Issei to see if he could let me stay at his house for a while," he said, to which the sister just nodded. "You know that if they find out that you left, there might be a scandal," she said, to which the boy just laughed. "I don't think they'll notice, plus I plan to leave using this, but first I have to call Issei, so he knows I'll be there tomorrow morning," showing a pamphlet with the Sekiryute magic circle. "Be careful, Ani-chan, I'm going to lie to you that you went to see one of your relatives," he said, but it was partly true. After a few moments, the sister began to help her brother pack his things, while the boy could only think of one thing. I hope you make them happy. I hope they don't think of looking for me, because if you have your new happiness, I also have to look for my own happiness. He thought with a look of disappointment. Faced with all this, she could only continue packing her things with the help of her sister. Returning to the faction leaders. After that talk with Issei, the leaders called their families, but Michael could be seen with a look of disappointment and Gabriel with a look of resignation. Surziches. Michael, I need you to answer me something. He said seriously, while Gabriel could be seen lowering his head so as not to look anyone in the eyes. The rest were silent and with a lot of guilt for not accepting the mistakes that Issei said. He had ruined the opportunity to save his daughter's sister's friends from the curse of the host of Kromkruch. It didn't help that the girls were now very ill. They didn't accept it knowing that all this happened because of their immaturity, while Michael could only look at Surziches and ask. Michael? What do you want to know, Surziches? He asked seriously, while Gabriel could see Irina crying, to which she only approaches her. Surziches looked at his sister suffering because of him. His parents were trying everything possible to calm her down. I hope that Michael might be able to get rid of Ryu's curse, since being close to the biblical god, he might be able to do something. Surziches. Is it true that the hosts suffer from a curse? He asked seriously, to which Michael was confused, while Gabriel was the same. Michael? What are you talking about? He said doubtfully, which left those present stunned. Surziches began to tell what happened about the meeting with the German demon factions and the alliance meeting. Where Ryu fell under the curse of Kromkruch and Drake told the origin behind it. It must be said that Michael and Gabriel now remembered why the biblical god hated Kromkruch so much for trying to rape Gabriel. Michael? That now explains why father had a great hatred for Kromkruch. He said, while remembering the moment when his father created his sacred gear, also from a chant. Michael? That explains a lot, but to know more about the curse, you can only know through father's forbidden library. He said, to which everyone knew that no one had ever found it. Even though he will find the library, getting rid of the curse would be impossible, since only father is capable of creating and erasing the curse. Just because I am the closest to him, does not mean that I can do those things like he does. Said Michael with sadness and guilt looking at the girl suffering under Ryu's curse. Azazel. But also the ancient reincarnation of Athena. He said, to which Gabriel nodded. Michael? That's right, but it will be impossible, because if the new reincarnation of Athena appears, that means that the old reincarnation died. He said, to which the leaders became frustrated, as did the relatives. Then Alana. This has to be a fucking joke, she said, before crying from helplessness. At least the girls will die without pain, since they won't have to live suffering next to that monster. Gabriel whispers since he would rather die than be with Ryu, who only saw them all as his trophy. At this everyone was surprised by the words that came out of Gabriel, so some could only agree. Lady Citri. You must be joking. She said, to which Gabriel was about to complain, but then they saw an officer who was serving the elders of the Council of Elders. Counselor. I'm sorry your words are wrong. He said, which caught everyone's attention. Surziches. What do you mean? He asked seriously. Advisor. The elders cancelled the marriage with the host of Kromkruch since they want the current Sekiryuite on their side, so some of Ryu's fiancés will become Issei's fiancés. He said, which left everyone surprised but also angry that the elders saw the girls as incubators. It's a fucking joke. Barakiel roared. It was already bad enough that the council had put his daughter in marriage with that piece of shit, and right now his daughter was dying. Azazel. In case you haven't noticed, the girls are under the curse of Kromkruch. They lost the ability to give birth to their children. Not to mention that the Sekiryuite will not accept the marriage, since he does not want to have anything to do with us. Said Azazel. The advisor was just a messenger, so he just let out a sigh. Counselor. I'm sorry, but I'm just a simple messenger, I only give the council's message. He said, to which everyone couldn't be bothered with him. Surziches. Thank you for telling us, you may leave. He said, while the advisor only made a subtle bow, and then left. Lady Phoenix. Those stupid old men. She said angrily, while her husband tries to calm her down. Auden sighed. Auden. The boy was right about us, all this is happening because we could not put control and authority. The boy always gave everything to us, and we could not do anything for him. I guess it is our sin for our bad decisions. Said Auden sadly since Roswis was sick in Asgard with Gondel helping her. Everyone was surprised to see the Nordic leader. But before they could say anything, they could only hear the footsteps of two people, but when they noticed who they were none other than Sona and Arthur, but behind them came Laisha Astareth. By her countenance her seriousness could be seen, but everyone had doubts about what she was doing here. Laisha approached and looked seriously at the leaders. Miss Laisha, what can I do for you? said Surziches while Sona and Arthur approached Serafal and Lefay who were barely conscious. Leisha. I'm looking for Issei Haidu, my fiancé. She said, which left everyone surprised, but they had to imagine that her engagement was by order of the elders. Then Alana. The elders also betrothed you to him. She said, both surprised and angry, knowing that they were using the other heiresses of the other clans. Leisha. You are wrong, Lady Gremory, my engagement, unlike your daughter, was arranged and with her support pointing to Ria's. Mine was granted by my parents and by my own decision. My uncle Ajuka does not know yet, but it is the least of it. She said as if nothing, leaving everyone surprised, knowing that they had in front of them one of Issei's fiancés. While Leisha had her talks with the leaders and the other patriarchs of the clan. Arthur and Sona approached Serafal and Lefay. Luckily Issei gave her 2 vials of Issei's blood, so they could cut the connection that tied her to Ryu, but they had to be sacrificed to save themselves from the curse. Faced with this, Sona was only able to take out 2 syringes from a magic circle, one of which she passed to Arthur. Serafal herself saw how her sister put alcohol on her right arm, while Arthur did the same with Lefay, only on her left arm. Sona. Even though you are immature, I still love you Oni-chan. She said, before injecting Serafal. Well Arthur. Arthur. You were stupid, but even so, my duty as your brother is to take care of you. He said, while injecting her. While the leaders and family members didn't even pay attention, Arthur hands Sona the bottle and syringe. She quickly puts them away in a magic circle. Soon purple smoke began to come out of Serafal and Lefay's body. The purple marks and veins began to disappear, causing the 2 to stop suffering. Which made Arthur and Sona sigh with joy. She owed Issei a lot for giving her blood, even though the 2 of them didn't deserve it. But the leaders noticed the purple smoke, so they turned to where it came from, which made them worried and quickly called the doctor. He entered where they were and asked them to leave, and then they were in the waiting room. Lady Citri. What could have happened to my daughter? She asked her husband worriedly, but he was just as worried as his wife. They took their time until the doctor came out. His expression apparently was relief, but also curiosity. Serafal Sama and Lefay Pendragon were cured of the curse. Said the doctor when he saw that the mark and veins disappeared. This left the leaders surprised, but the doctor continued speaking. Doctor. We can't really take blood samples to create one, he said, which angered many. Zeoticus. Why can't it be? He asked angrily. Doctor. By taking a blood sample there is a risk that they will become infected again, or that their blood will lose its healing properties. He said, to which the Zeoticus could only sigh. Then Alana. This must be a joke, she said, before crying helplessly. Doctor. But it caught my attention that they had a needle prick. He said, to which Arthur and Sona got nervous. In itself everyone was surprised, but then everyone remembered that Sona and Arthur were with their sisters when they entered, and they turned to look at her. Azazel. You did it, didn't you? He said, to which they only let out a small sigh. Sona. Yes, even though my sister and Arthur's sister made mistakes being with Ryu and hurting Issei, he offered us his blood to save her. Said Sona while Arthur nodded. This surprised everyone, knowing that there was another method, but before asking for the syringes with Issei's blood, Sona said. Sona. If they are going to ask for the syringes, I will send them through a magic circle to the human world, where the Bermuda Triangle is, she said, which angered some people. Arthur. Issei only gave us his blood because we begged him for his help. Issei was going to help you, but you wasted your chance. Arthur said coldly. To which the leaders just lowered their heads, remembering that the brown-haired boy extended his hand to them, but because of his damned ego, they only provoked their own karma. Then Alana. Why do you refuse to help the others? She asked, while her hair covered her eyes. Sona. You know the answer, you said you would never need their help. Issei swallowed his pride to help you, but no, his damn ego of believing himself superior, and look what he did. She said angrily, to which Benalana slapped her. Sona was not fazed by the slap, but looked coldly at Benalana. Don't forget who it was that insisted that Ria's marry Ryu. You wanted fame and power with a host of the strongest evil dragon. Well, you got it, you sacrificed your daughter's life for your arrogance and immaturity. Said Sona and then left with Arthur. At this Benalana was about to claim him, but then she felt the edge of a sword, seeing that it was Caliburn. Arthur. You said it yourself, I will never need the help of a pervert. He said, to which Benalana steps back as she is about to die from a sacred sword. I will not let my sister die for your stupidities. For me, all of you can die for your mistakes, but do not drag us down. Said Arthur to put away the sword. Before some could say, the doctor who was taking care of AKENO came. Arakiel-sama, I have news about your daughter. Said the doctor sadly. Arakiel. What's wrong, doctor? He asked seriously, but his fear was noticeable. Doctor. Your daughter is in a much more serious condition than the others, he said, to which he grabbed the doctor by the shoulders and began to shake him. Becariel. That can't be possible. she said, unable to believe the doctor's words. He doesn't have much time to live, in an hour his heart may stop beating, with his emotional state and his weak body, I'm afraid there's nothing more I can do, said the doctor. This left the others frightened, while Barakiel demanded to see his daughter, but before Azazel could say anything, Barakiel had retreated. Azazel. So this is karma. He thought sadly, watching Barakiel get lost in the hospital corridors. But Barakiel. The doctor took him to a room separate from the other girls. When he arrived, there was AKENO, conscious, but staring at the ceiling with a blank look. Her arms, her face, had purple veins. They had dried blood on their mouths. Barakiel silently sat next to AKENO and silently sobbed, remembering all the mistakes he made. AKENO. Dad, this is not your fault, this was my own decisions. She broke the silence, while Barakiel just stared at his daughter. Barakiel soon began to tell AKENO about Issei's cure and help, but that by letting himself be carried away by anger, he had ruined the possibility of being saved. Not only that, Sona and Arthur were able to save Serafal and Lefay thanks to Issei. AKENO. So they were saved, but I'm happy for them, she said, while looking at the ceiling. Barakiel. Why? I asked, confused. AKENO. They got carried away by the comments of others and me, but at least they will have a second chance, she said with a genuine smile. AKENO stared at the ceiling, slowly beginning to imagine a life, one where instead of Ryu, it would be Issei. A life in which the two were happy, their wedding, their honeymoon. One where they had a son or daughter and they were a beautiful happy family. AKENO. You know, father, what would have happened if instead of falling in love with Ryu, I had fallen in love with Issei, she said, as she saw that now impossible future. Barakiel. Daughter. Was the only thing he could say. AKENO. Father, I was jealous of the relationship that Momo had with Issei, that look of love, while Ryu only looked at me with lust. Admitting that jealousy had clouded his judgment. In the end, my jealousy condemned me. I could have been happy by his side if it weren't for my envy. AKENO whispers. AKENO could not bear it any longer, she began to cry bitterly. The idea of dying terrified him, he still had a lot to do, he had many mistakes to correct. Barakiel. Daughter, please don't cry, he said worriedly. AKENO. But I'm also glad that he can be happy, once I heard that he put our happiness above mine, and it's time for me to do the same, she said, while tears fell from her eyes. AKENO. Father, please don't hold a grudge against Issei, promise me, it's my fault that you ended up like this. At least I hope that in the next life you have a chance, said AKENO smiling sadly. At this Barakiel looked at his daughter with a smile. Barakiel. It's okay, daughter, he said, while trying to stay strong. To which AKENO could only smile. AKENO. Thanks, Dad, she said happily, while closing her eyes, to which the monitor was heard starting to sound, to which Barakiel finally ended up crying from the sadness of losing his daughter, first his wife and now his daughter. Barakiel began to regret, he began to apologize and blame everyone. In the end, Issei was right, he hadn't done shit for his daughter, he hadn't protected her enough. He had failed not only Shuri, but also AKENO, the only happiness she had left. And all because he did not want to admit his mistakes and failures. Meanwhile, in a beautiful meadow with beautiful flowers, AKENO could be seen walking there, with a beautiful white color, while from her back her wings could be seen, instead of black, they were as white as snow. AKENO. She heard someone calling her, so she looked around to see where the scream came from. AKENO looked at him and then tears started coming out. In front of him was his mother, Shuri Himejima, smiling. Shuri. Daughter. You grew up, Shuri said with tears. AKENO. Mom. She said, tears falling from her eyes, but before she could say anything, she felt her mother's arms wrap around her. Shuri. Don't cry, daughter, I'm already here with you, she said with a smile that only a mother can give. AKENO. This is not a dream, she said through tears. Shuri. No, it's time to go, you have to tell me everything in great detail, AKENO, she said curiously. AKENO nodded and walked into the countryside with her mother, getting lost among the fields of flowers. So long, AKENO. Rest. In peace. Meanwhile with Issei. He could be seen with a serious expression, since after finishing using his blood, he only let out a sigh. Nix. I still don't understand why your blood will help those two, she said seriously. Issei. You see, in order for my body to withstand the power of the booster gear, I had to sacrifice my humanity, so I exchanged my heart for that of a dragon, he said seriously. Nix. But that doesn't explain why your blood serves as an antidote to Kromkruch's curse, she said confused. Issei. You see, Kromkruch's curse is a very powerful poison, but it is also a magic spell, so to counteract the poison, you have to use a more powerful one, but in a smaller dose, he said, while in Issei's right hand appears the dividing gear. At this Issei's mates opened their eyes wide. Leo. You turned Albion's poison into an antidote, but what about the spell? She said, confused. Issei. Drake's flames are capable of burning everything in their path and continuing to burn, but they can also burn magic and curses. He said with a small smile, to which those present were surprised to learn that the cure was Drake's fire and Albion's poison. Momo. If that's so, why didn't you let Albion speak and say the solution? She said, confused. Issei. Valerie is not yet ready to bear the weight of Albion's poison. He said seriously, which caught the attention of some. Sayori. She behaves like a spoiled girl with an ego that is too big, she should stop underestimating her enemy, shouldn't she? She said, to which Issei nodded. Issei. We have to go now. He said, while creating a magic circle. But before disappearing, he said in a low voice. Rest in peace, AKENO. He whispered in a low voice. As he disappears with his loved ones, leaving an atmosphere of sadness in the wind. But when he returned home, he could hear the sound of his cell phone, so he picked it up, and when he saw who was calling, he could only answer the call. Issei's call and. Issei. Hello. Issei, I need your help. Issei. If it's so I can help you celebrate your anniversary with them, forget about me helping you. It's not that, but you were right about them, they just wanted to keep me for. Issei. I told you, but forgetting that, why do you need me? If you could give me asylum in your house, just for a while. Issei. I don't think so, I'm in Germany right now, but I don't see any problem with it, but please don't fall for his lies again. Don't worry, I decided to make things clear that they can be happy with whoever they want, but they should leave me alone. Issei. Okay, you have the pamphlet I gave you, don't you? Of course, but why? Issei. Tomorrow at 6 in the morning I will come for you, since your magic power only allows you to travel to Kuo. You're right, but I thought you had moved to a place closer to your old home. Issei. No, since it was a matter of time before they discovered it was there, I think it was only between 1 or 2 months when they would have discovered it. You're right, I recently received a visit from their mates, they told me to stop embarrassing them, it's very funny, isn't it? Issei. Yes, since they were the ones who actually embarrassed you, but I tell you once and for all not to close your heart, find someone who compliments you. I don't know, but let's see how things turn out. Issei. I understand, for now I'll leave you to rest, since tomorrow your new life begins. You're right, goodbye cousin. Issei. Likewise. End of call. After finishing the call, he could see Momo and Mocha, both of them knew who he was talking about, since they were the only family of Issei who, apart from his grandparents, treated him as such and not as his parents or siblings. Leo? Who was it? He asked doubtfully. Issei. He was my cousin, by the way, are you letting him stay with us? He asked, to which Mio didn't think twice. Leo. Of course, I'll be glad to meet your cousin, but now we'll have a new problem. She said seriously, to which Issei nodded. Issei. The factions, plus we're returning to the academy tomorrow. He said tiredly. Leo. That's right, I think I'll have to talk to the director to enroll Mocha and Sayori in the academy, since I highly doubt Nyx will attend. She said, while Nyx was watching television, to which Issei knew she was absolutely right. Issei. Yes, but that's how I love her, I don't want her to change at all, since many want their mate to change, since according to them the perfection of the excellent couple. He said, since he remembered how Ryu his brother told his mates how the women of the strongest host of Crom Cruach should behave. At this the others made a face of disgust, except Nyx who was busy watching television, but at one point she made a small face, but not of pain, but of disgust. After Issei's talk, the others went to bed, while Nyx just leaned against the door, while looking at the window. At this she could only give a sigh of tiredness, while she became a mass of darkness, but this quickly turned into a ray and went out the window. Said ray of darkness attacked what looked like a bench, but someone jumped to the side, dodging the ray of darkness. Nyx. You have become weak, who would have thought that the dragon goddess of infinity would become so weak? She said with a mocking smile, since the one in front of her was Officer Obris. Office. Nyx, how did you know I was hiding here? She asked with her usual expressionless face. Nyx. Maybe because your power is unstable, maybe you also control the darkness, or because I simply felt your gaze on my back. She said as if nothing. Office. Then you should know that I'm still stronger than you. He said, which made Nyx laugh. Suddenly, Nyx stood behind Office and whispered in her ear. Nyx. Yes, but thanks to Crom Cruach's curse, your power became more unstable, which leaves you with almost 35% of your power, and also when you escape, don't think I'll sit idly by, she said with a smile that made Office feel afraid for the first time. Office could still outmatch Nyx with that power, but since Nyx was unstable, she had to wait seconds or minutes, which in a battle were decisive, since several things could happen. Suddenly, Office felt like she was kicked in the back. She screamed in pain, as that kick was imbued with magical power, which shot out to the opposite side where Nyx was. But it didn't end there, as Nyx appeared in front of her and gave her an axe kick, which made Office crash into the ground, leaving her body nailed to the ground. Nyx. It's a good thing I asked Mocha to teach me her kicks, but now what am I going to do with you? Seeing the unconscious form of Office crashed on the ground. They then see Ryu's mark, which was half covered by Office's gothic loli dress, and then just put on a small smile, which made anyone who saw it run away in fear. As a black magic circle formed, a vial could be seen appearing, inside of which was what looked like blood. Nyx. It's a good thing I asked one of my creations for a little of Samuel's blood, she said, as she dropped a little of the blood on the mark, which seemed to feed and watch as it grew, while Office's presence was at 25%, which her power was equal to Drake's before being sealed in the booster gear. Next day, 5 a.m. Issei could be seen in a magic circle, while he looked at Mio, Momo, Mocha and Sayori with a serious look. Mocha. Be careful Issei, because if you're going to bring your cousin, you must do everything quickly, she said seriously, but the concern could be noticed in her voice. Issei. I have it covered, I asked Sakvara to create a device that allows me to hide from those damn trackers, he said, as he remembered when he went to visit his cousin, he was intercepted, making some bodyguards believe that he was a terrorist, and how he had to wait for his cousin to clarify everything. But before he could leave, he saw the door open, revealing Nyx, who was shaking the dust off her clothes. Sayori. Where were you Nyx? She asked seriously, since she forgot to activate her ability. Nyx. I sent something by mail to one of my creations, she said normally, while inside she was nervous. Sayori. I understand, but let us know beforehand so we don't worry, she said, while letting out a sigh. Meanwhile, we could see a boat, which had several people on it, but we headed with the captain of said boat. Sailor. Captain, the sea is very calm, he said, while looking through radar. Captain. If this continues, we will reach Antarctica in a week, he said with a smile. In one of the containers, you could see what looked like a large block of ice, and it was none other than Officer Ouroboros. You might wonder what happened, the answer is easy. Nyx, after finishing diminishing Office's power, took her to the Cocytus and left her there for about 2 hours, which quickly froze, to which she knew she couldn't leave her there, so she decided to send her to Antarctica for a little vacation. Returning to Issei. Nyx. I thought it would have been better to send her with Hera, he thought, but at least he was going to help her get to know the penguins. Issei. I'm leaving now, he said, as he disappears in a crimson flash. As Issei left, Momo could be seen getting up from her seat and walking straight to where Nyx was. Momo. Nyx, I need your help, she said, which caught the attention of those present. Nyx. How can I help you, Momo? She asked curiously. Momo. You can contact Hypnos, she said seriously. Nyx. Yes, but what do you need it for? She said confused. Momo. To teach certain people a lesson, she said with a smile that would scare the Trixahera. Nyx at that moment remembered a certain person, to which an aura of darkness began to surround her, while she clenched her fists in frustration. She wanted revenge, to which a smile like Momo's would scare the 666 himself. Nyx. You're absolutely right, I'm not going to allow them to get close to Issei just out of pure interest, she said, while a magic circle appears in her ear. Meanwhile with Issei. Issei had appeared 2 streets away from where his cousin was, to which he only glanced to the sides. Issei. What do you think happened here, partner, for him to want to leave here? He said to his partner. Greg. I don't know, partner, but I feel an aura similar to the one you had before, partner, he said through the mental link he had with Issei. Issei. If that's the case, they will pay dearly for what they did to my cousins, he thought, while clenching his fists, since his 2 cousins were, so to speak, like the brothers he always wanted, although it may sound selfish. I just want to thank you, because your hatred was what gave me strength. A normal day could be seen at Kuo Academy, where several students entered, where the population was greater than that of the boys, but in a tree near the old building, which was the occult club, was Issei Haidu. Mental landscape. In a large dark space, where the only light came from Issei. Issei. You know Drake, if I reveal myself now to the factions, they will surely treat me as a simple weapon, he said, while the darkness slowly went away, while flames were present, from which a red dragon could be seen. Drake. And you're not wrong, my friend. Besides, the White Host is very proud, which will bring her problems later, he said tiredly, since no one should underestimate their enemy, no matter how weak they may seem. Issei. Also, it makes me very sad to see her with my brother. I would at least like to talk to her for a moment, but no, she always says she is busy, and minutes later my brother appears, to which she goes to him and asks if they can spend time together, he said angrily, to which Drake only looked at him for a moment and then shook his head. End of your memories. Remembering his past, he could only let out a tired sigh, so he looked to the side, where a reporter was, since they were in a limousine. Issei. What do you want me to tell you? He asked curiously, while the reporter looked thoughtful. Reporter. I would like you to tell me about the beginning of your life. What was the story of Issei Haidu, the current Sekiruyute? She said determinedly. Issei. I don't know, honestly, I think my life isn't interesting at all. He said, remembering that his life was normal, leaving aside the supernatural. Reporter. I don't think so, since you defeated the sister of the Mao Lucifer in a gamer rating. She said, while paying attention to what Issei was going to say. Issei, POV. I think there is no problem. When I was barely 6 or 7 years old, my life took a 360 degrees turn, since. Flashback. When I played with my only friend, who apparently dressed as a boy, maybe she wasn't very feminine at that time, she used the name Rin, so that I wouldn't discover that she was a woman, since she was afraid that I would take her away from me, just because she was a woman. Issei. Rin-san, this is boring. I said tiredly. Rin. You're right. He said, as he sat on the cold floor of that abandoned church. Issei. So next week you're leaving Kuo. I said sadly. Rin. That's right, we're going to move to England, it will be very interesting to live there. He said, but I could see in his eyes that he didn't want to leave. Issei. Rin-san, you shouldn't lie to me, I know very well that you don't want to leave. He said, while Rin lowered her gaze. End of flashback. After telling that conversation, the reporter was left with her eyes wide open. Reporter. Wasn't she your childhood friend? He asked doubtfully. Issei. She was never very feminine when she was a child, since she thought that she was not going to be played with, being a girl. He said, to which the reporter knew very well how children were. Reporter. I understand, but what happened to her? He said seriously. Issei. I made a promise with her, but she forgot over time. He said, well, the reporter knew that this was a delicate subject. Flashback. Issei could be seen with a smile when he saw his childhood friend in front of him, but not everything is as it seems. Irina. Ryu-kun, it's a pleasure to see you again. She said with a smile, while still passing by Issei. Ryu. It's nice to see you again, Rin-chan, but didn't you forget to say hello to someone else? He asked the last thing with a mocking tone. Irina. I don't think so. She said, while Issei felt a thought in his heart. But this was seen by Issei's two companions, to which one only makes the fat list, while the other only watched as Issei left in silence. Warana. Irina, this is going to cause you a lot of harm. If you think that hanging out with strong people will make you stronger, you are very wrong. She said in her thoughts, while watching Irina behave like a hypocrite. End of flashback. Remembering that scene, she was able to know who were true friends. She didn't know the last thing Marana said. The only one who knew was Marana, since she remembered it from having been there that day. Issei. In the end I realized that you have to keep pretending that life has meaning, that this fight has meaning. He said, while remembering how he saved his brothers from fights that wiped the floor with them. Reporter. You must have fought hard for your loved ones, she said sadly. Issei. Ha ha ha, fighting for my loved ones, my brothers actually when I consider them my brothers, maybe because I promised my grandfather to take care of them, but I never promised him that I would face every mistake they make. He said, while letting out a tired sigh. Reporter. I understand, but what are you looking for in all this, since I think you were looking for something from them? She said, to which Issei only looked at the ceiling, and then just looked down. Issei. I wasn't looking for a thank you, I just wanted them to notice my presence, but those who sought my help, it was only to ask for something in return, remembering how Azazel only became their friend, but only to borrow Mocha's rosary. Reporter. I understand, how was the presence of the dragon goddess of infinity in your former residence? She asked with interest. Issei. At first I was nervous, but then over time it became annoying. He said ironically. Reporter. What was the reason for this? I ask again. Issei. Ryu's habits were rubbing off on him, and they always blamed me, but there was only one time that really hurt me. He said, while remembering a scene from his past. Flashback. The faction leaders could be seen gathered in their house while they were eating, while Issei was sitting, but he wanted to leave that place since he couldn't stand the leaders. Michael. So brother, when are you going to settle down? I asked Azazel curiously. Issei. He has a girl who does his duty, but for being so lazy he already lost her. He said in his thoughts. Azazel. May that old man forgive me, but I'm not going to settle down. He said seriously, but without knowing that he broke a certain person's heart. Issei. That must have hurt her. He said in his thoughts, while looking at the aforementioned with his gaze lowered, but Ryu was not paying attention, since he was staring at the most beautiful seraph in heaven, not to mention that he was not looking at her face, but at other parts of her body. But before he could say anything else in his thoughts, the father of the three brothers could be seen getting up from the table while hitting a spoon with a glass cup, drawing the attention of those present. "Boru. My son Ryu has a very important announcement to make," he said, to which everyone turned to look at Ryu, while Issei felt a pressure on his chest. "Ryu. You see, some of you know that I've been going out very often, in addition to some of my mates that I've formalized my relationship with," he said, to which Issei knew that Ryu was going to get engaged to another of his mates. As everyone nodded, Ryu walks over to a certain purple-haired diva, but not before he gets on his knees. "Ryu. That's why I want to formalize my relationship with you, Ingvild Leviathan, will you marry me?" he asked, while extending his hand, where there was a box, showing a box with a wedding ring. But before being able to respond, Officer Obris could be seen appearing in front of Ryu, to which she threw water at him, but this one was special, it came from the bottom of the sea. "Ryu. Why are you doing this, Office?" he asked, but it sounded even more scolding. "Office. I wanted to play a joke on you," he said with his usual expressionless face, while Issei and Momo held back their desire to laugh. "Asia. Issei-san, Momo-san, this is not funny," she scolded these two, while Ryu only pretended to turn to where his dear brother was. "Ryu. Brother, this is not funny, but you should have told Office that she will ruin this beautiful dinner today," he said, while pretending to cry, to which everyone turned to look at him with reproach, anger, rage and sadness. "Then Alana. Are you really that cruel to your own brother?" she asked angrily, to which Issei wanted to stand up and defend himself, but he knew it was a lost cause. "Serafol. You must be ashamed to teach poor Office that way of treating people," she said with disgust, to which Issei only got up from his seat, while Momo followed him from behind. End of flashback. He remembered how Ingvild didn't reply to him, to which Issei only mentally thanked her, and then just left for his room, while Momo saw all this with disgust and complained to the leaders, but she knew she didn't have enough power, maybe she could face Saraerg, but not all his peerage together. Reporter. "Those damn, what did you decide to do after that family dispute?" she said, to which Issei could only smile. "Issei. How about I invite her to eat? So I can continue telling her about my life," he said with a smile, to which the reporter thought about it for a moment. Reporter. "Sounds great to me," she said, to which Issei gave instructions to the driver. But while he was on his way to the restaurant, a bit of fear could be seen in Issei's eyes, since his story was not all rosy, but he remembered his grandmother's words. "The world is a selfish and cruel place." Remembering those words, he knew that she was absolutely right, he had to get up from the ground more than once as he was knocked down again and again. Issei. "Grandma, I have another phrase to tell you, greatness inspires envy, envy generates resentment, and resentment generates lies," he thought, remembering how his brother wanted to keep the glory of having sealed the Trahexa, to which he could only shake his head. Flashback. Ryu and Valeria could be seen at their maximum power, but they were easily sent flying, to which Issei knew what it was about. "Issei. They are real idiots," he said, while covering Sona, Rhea and Momo with a magic circle. "Rhea. What do you mean Haidu-kun?" she asked curiously. "Issei. They don't control their power, they are practically wearing out that power, and they are also reaching their limit faster," he explained to Rhea. "Sona. If they had trained that power, it would have been easier to seal that beast," Sona intervened, to which Issei only nodded. "Issei. That's right, but I have to push the Trahexa back to where the seal of God was before," he said seriously, to which he knew which was the only way. "Greg. What you're thinking, partner, is a lot of nonsense, but we must do it now, before he gets further away," he said, to which Issei could only do one thing. "Greg. Divide 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 began to divide the power of Ryu and Valeria, to which Issei could only watch as they lost that transformation. And then only be hit by an attack from the Trahexa. Issei. Momo, help Sona and Rhea recreate the seal, with the spinster seal, we can create a double door," he said, to which Momo just nodded. "Momo. Okay, but be careful," she said, as she watched Issei enter his balance breaker. "Issei, Drake. Who shall awaken?" "It started, it seems like it's going to start. I am the heavenly dragon who stole the principles of domination from God. It has always been like this, that's correct, it has always been like this. I laugh at the infinity. And despise the dream. What the world wants. What the world rejects. I shall become the red dragon of domination. It's always been about power. It's always been about love. No matter how many times, you always choose the path of ruin. I shall drown you into the depths of the crimson purgatory. Juggernaut Drive. Little by little the Sekiryute's armor was changing. The wings were replaced by a kind of skeleton of these, as if they had lost their skin. The gloves that previously simulated claws were now straight wings. The helmet was transformed into what looked like a real dragon head. Issei. Trihiksa. He shouted, but it seemed more like a roar. You could only see how he flew towards Trihiksa to hit it. The blow was strong enough to knock him back just a few steps, but it seemed like it was impossible. But he moved away, circled around him a few times, and then used that as momentum to launch himself and knock the Trihiksa back. Greg. The energy we take from those two is high enough for you to be in the Juggernaut drive for a month. He said, to which Issei began to see how the Trihiksa's burns healed on their own. Issei. Drake, your fire does not stop burning until the enemy ceases to exist. He said, to which Drake knew the nonsense he was planning. Drake. Partner, I already know what you're planning. Just let me tell you that it will be an honor to see if the beast of the apocalypse is able to withstand my strongest flames. He said, to which Issei could only smile, since he had found a worthy opponent. The flames of Drake began to manifest in Issei's hands, but those also began to expand, as the same armor. Issei. Let's see if he can regenerate from this. He said, to which Issei's arm claw hit the Trihiksa's chest, which roared in pain, while the wound tried to heal on its own. But Drake's flames made it impossible to heal her, as they spread within the beast. Drake. So my most powerful fire makes the regeneration of this chimera useless. He said mockingly. Only a kind of shooting star could be seen hitting the Trihiksa, but little by little Valeria and Ryu regained consciousness after losing all that power. Valeria. Albion, can you tell me what happened? Ryu's power and mind suddenly decreased. She said, to which Albion thought for a moment. Albion. I don't know, but what I can tell you is that you only have enough energy to maintain the breaker balance for a couple of hours. He said, to which Valeria gritted her teeth in frustration. In the distance, Roswis could be seen in her Valkyrie outfit, while beads of sweat could be seen on her forehead. Roswis. The seal is absorbing all my magic, we must seal it now. He said, to which the faction leaders were looking for the opportunity to push back the beast of the apocalypse. But when they got in front, they could only see what looked like some kind of energy comet moving from one place to another, forcing the beast back. There he is. Ryu must be pushing back that damn beast. She said happily, knowing that her mate was risking her life to save them, but the ugly little thing was more than wrong. Office. You are wrong. He said, which took the leaders by surprise. Azazel. What do you mean? He asked seriously. Office. Ryu and Valeria are trying to regain their power, but their bodies won't hold up a second time, while the one fighting the Trihiksa is Issei. He said, to which the leaders opened their eyes in surprise. End of flashback. As she finished remembering, she couldn't hold back a small laugh, as she could see the surprised faces of the leaders in the distance, while the girls tried to shake their heads. Greg. Poor ugly little things, but at least cheer up, friend, you have a happiness that you still have to build and take care of day by day, he said in the mind of his host. Issei. Yes, but I still can't believe what I found out before I left for war. He said sadly to Drake through their mental link, while clenching his hands into fists. Drake. I understand, partner, I know you want to kill your brother for claiming the two Nico, your ex-childhood friend, the pureblood vampire and her, he said, to which Issei just lowered his head. Issei. Don't remind me of those bitches, at least they already got what they deserve. How much time is left before Kromkruch's curse takes effect on my dear brother? He said sarcastically, while holding back the urge to laugh. Greg. Not much, my friend, but I think the curse will act faster on those who considered your brother as their pillar of support. He said, to which Issei knew what he was talking about. The which Issei just stared out the limousine window, only to remember how he helped the one who claimed to love him. Flashback. An old warehouse could be seen, but the sky seemed distorted. Issei was using what looked like an old sword that lost. Issei. I thank you for teaching me how to use the sword. He said, while his hair covered his eyes. Ice-kun, this shouldn't end like this, I know I made a mistake. He said with tears in his blue eyes. Issei. I saved you from being executed, but a month later I find you sleeping with that idiot I call brother. He said angrily, while the sword Excalibur Galatine took on a reddish aura like blood. I'm sorry, She was interrupted by Issei. Issei. What nonsense were you going to say? That I'll rape you, hahaha, you think I'm so stupid, but killing you would only free you from this suffering. Said angrily, while lowering his sword. What are you trying to say? She said confused. Issei. At least I learned this magic from Momo, I hope you like the new life I'm going to give you. He said, while raising his face and showing green eyes, while raising a finger. Faced with this, the girl tried to dodge the attack, but it was too late, the attack hit her forehead, but a pink ray could be seen. Many would think it would be something good, but those who were close could only feel terror and fear of that ray. Issei. You will forget that you ever knew me, just like your life about the supernatural. He said, while the girl tried to resist, but it was in vain, while her face remained expressionless, but tears fell from her eyes. Please no. But no one heard her, while Issei used his magic power to modify his memories. Issei. Every time you fall in love with someone, the memories of you cheating on me will always come to mind, to which little by little you will forget the feelings of feeling loved, that someone protects you, and that you will never love again like you once loved me, you will be dead in life without any purpose. He said, while the girl lost consciousness and fell to the ground on her back, while her tears stopped. When that spell ended, he could only let out a sigh of sadness. Issei. It's sad to see someone's life end like this. He thought as he heard a person's footsteps, only to see a certain person he considered a comrade in arms. So you didn't kill her in the end? He said seriously, to which Issei could only put on a serious look. Issei. What would it do? It would only free her from her sins, there are much worse ways to punish people. He said seriously, to which the subject only nodded, since he was saying something that was very true from his point of view. I understand, but you know it disappoints me that she lied to you like that. If you need anything, you know where to find me. He said, while taking the girl, and then leaving in a magic circle. End of flashback. When she finished remembering, she could only sigh, as the girl saw her from afar. When she was passing through the United States, she had seen her in what seemed to be a tourist area, since that's where she works, as she remembered how Momo wanted to turn her into a popsicle. Flashback. At least 5 days had passed after Issei faked his own death, while he walked very calmly accompanied by Momo. Issei. This place is quiet, but the bad thing is that we can't stay here. He said seriously, knowing that they were in one of the angels' territories. Momo. I understand, but are you sure what we will do in this place? She said, while looking at the surroundings of New York. Issei. Yes, but the person we are going to meet is someone who helped me a few months ago, but there is no problem at least, unless I make him angry. He said, to which Momo understood what he meant. Momo. Biblical God can't be completely good, he said, with a dark look. Issei. And if he is completely good, he cannot be almighty. He said, since he himself knew that Yahweh had a great hatred for dragons. The creation of Samuel was proof of this, as well as the sword known as Ascalon, a dragon slayer sword. They could only continue to watch their surroundings. But Momo, when she turned her gaze to what looked like a bus stop, could see a certain girl that she hated with all her being. If Mocha were alive, the two of them were going to burn her like their ancestor. Momo. That idiot couldn't send her to the desert, but I don't blame him too much since he didn't know we were going to end up in this place. She said in her thoughts. Issei could feel Momo's power increasing in an alarming way, while a black aura covered her, but she maintained an overly sweet smile. Issei. Why is she so angry? He asked himself mentally. Greg. Partner, you better calm her down, because if she continues like this, she could alert the people in charge of this place. Drake informed him, but Issei turns his gaze to where Momo is looking, only to find the lady who allegedly swore to love him. Issei. Now everything makes sense. The good thing is that I never asked her to be my girlfriend, but Drake is right, I must calm Momo down, since I do not want that because of a chat with her, they find us. He said in his thoughts, while he put his hand on Momo's shoulder, to which she turned to look at him. Momo. Issei. Was the only thing he could say, as his murderous instincts diminished. Issei. It's not worth it, we should go and continue on our own path, she already chose hers, and now it's our turn to continue on our own path. He said, to which Momo just nodded. Faced with this, Drake decided to create the seal to seal the feelings he had for those girls with whom its host fell in love, who humiliated him, mistreated him and treated him with indifference. End of flashback. Faced with this memory, the only thing Issei could do was know that he already had a life mate, so he was not going to be an idiot to abandon his new family. Faced with this memory of how his brother Ryu boasted that he was the oldest. Flashback. Ryu could be seen with a superior smile, to which Issei could only shake his head. Issei. So you asked the Infinity Dragon to make you taller? He said with a tired look. Ryu. That's right, I'm older than you now. He said arrogantly, while Issei could only laugh. What's so funny? He asked somewhat annoyed, while he saw his brother laughing. Issei. The height may have increased, but if I notice that it remains the same size, let me guess that it took you 5 times to mark each of your girls. He said mockingly. How did he know this? Let's say that I could taught him her skill, while the girls who were marked by Ryu were embarrassed, since in reality they were not 5 attempts, they were 10 attempts, since Ryu needed a 1-hour break. But when they turned around they saw Momo giving them a mocking smile, since when Issei claimed Momo, let's just say that they went out after a week, just to recover energy, but they had forgotten to put a magic seal, so that the sound would not come out, which made the girls who were marked by Ryu jealous, since Issei and Momo looked like rabbits. Ryu. Fuck. That asshole. He muttered annoyed while seeing Issei's mocking smile. Issei. Since the only thing you grew was in height, but your ego can no longer grow, because if you do, the world may end. Well, they hear the dark dragon talk about him, they would kill each other, and you would no longer have your own followers. He said with a mocking smile. Ryu. At least I have fans. He said arrogantly. Issei. Yes, but you know what they love more than a hero. He said with a smile that gave more than one a chill. Ryu. What do you mean? He asked seriously, but inside he was scared, seeing his brother's smile. Issei. The fall of this one. He said, which Ryu knew was right. Ryu. You are wrong. He said, sure of his words, since his pride blinded him because of this. Issei. Are you sure, since the death of several soldiers of the demons, angels, fallen were cheered by the people who before did not even pay attention to them, we will see how much time is left before your story is forgotten. He said, to which Ryu was going to hit Issei, but he falls to the ground, while his face was nailed to the ground. Ryu. This is impossible. He whispered annoyed, since he thought he was going to be superior to his brother, since in public Issei pretended to be weak, but when there is only the peerage of Ria's, Issei and his, Issei treats him like his pet. Issei. Don't forget that you made my life impossible, but if I take care of you at the cost of my own life, it is at the request of my grandfather. If it were up to me, I would have let you die a long time ago. He said, while his eyes lost that sparkle of life. For a moment Ryu could see that behind Issei, he saw a red dragon, and its eyes made Ryu want to urinate in his pants. Ryu. I'm sorry. He said, as he began to cry, since Issei can subdue his brothers with a simple look. Since Issei took care of them, but since they let their pride grow, they became very arrogant, to which Issei decided that if they did something stupid, they would be responsible for their own consequences. Issei himself had broken his promise, but everything has a limit, to which Ryu and Issei had made his brother Issei explode. Issei, stop. She was interrupted, seeing how Issei gave her a look so cold that it would freeze her own soul. She was scared, to which Issei could only see that she lacked spirit, to which Issei just walks to her. Issei. Your power is incomplete, without it you won't even be able to give me a simple scratch. He said, while patting his sister's left cheek. But when she was going to give the fourth slap, it turned into a slap, which sent her flying against the wall, while Issei became bored seeing this. Issei. From now on, if you do something stupid, even if it's small, you'll be held responsible. I don't want to take the blame anymore. He said seriously, to which Issei and Ryu lowered their heads in shame. End of flashback. He remembered how Issei and Ryu tried to hit him, but with his gaze he made them tremble. It is said that memories are painful, but if they are of love they hurt like hell. Issei comes out of his thoughts, only to see that they were arriving at the restaurant. Issei. It seems that we are going to reach our destination. He said with a smile. Reporter. It seems so, he said sincerely. Issei. Do you have any questions before we arrive? He said curiously. Reporter. Yes, do you have any relatives other than your parents and siblings? She asked curiously. Issei. That's right, but it seems that he has problems, since the women who came up with the crazy harem plan distanced themselves from him, since they were afraid to take the next step, not knowing that he had a surprise for them, but it seems that my cousin has not realized. He said sadly, because of what is happening to his cousin. Flashback. Azazel was sighing as he headed to the bar. It's been a day since AKENO died. He had hoped that his friend could get over him, but he found out that he had resigned from Grigori's position and used all the money from his missions to go drinking at the bar. Barakiel was one of the strongest Grigori had. Without him, he was vulnerable. I get to see the bar about to close. But what he saw filled him with anger, as he saw several men who were employees of that bar, but they were holding Barakiel. Azazel. Damn it Barakiel, this has gone too far. He said, as he approached Barakiel. I just want to keep drinking. Barakiel shouted, very angry and very drunk. Sir, you've already had a lot to drink, we can't risk giving you more alcohol. Said the owner. Wait, he's my friend. Said Azazel. Azazel-sama. It would be better if you take it. Said the owner. Azazel. Lose. He said with his gaze downcast, to which Barakiel barely got up. Barakiel. Tobio, let me keep drinking, to take away these damn sorrows. He said annoyed, while trying to walk. Tobio. No, Azazel-sama, it is better that you take him home. He said annoyed. Tobio closed the door leaving Barakiel on the floor. Azazel shook his hand to help him. Why the hell are you here? If you came to beg me to go back to Grigori, you're wasting your time. Drinking his last bottle of beer. Azazel. Barakiel, you must know that you are killing yourself. Coming to offer you your old position again would be a waste of time. He said, while Azazel stares at him. Barakiel. You don't know anything. He said drunk. Azazel. What are you trying to say? He asked, somewhat annoyed. Barakiel. Of the loss of your family. He said, to which Azazel was eager to punch Barakiel to break his tangerine. Azazel. Of course I know nothing if the woman I loved died. He said, before punching Barakiel in the face. Barakiel was silent but grabbed Azazel by the tie. He didn't just talk about Shuri, he talked about my daughter. You never had a daughter, so don't talk about this shit. It's your damn fault too. Barakiel shouts. My fault? Exclaimed Azazel angrily. Unlike the others, I was undecided that AKENO would be with that bastard. But you alone convinced me that she would be in good hands. I listened to you and my daughter died, and the bastard who trusted her so much with his life let her die like a stray dog. Shouted Barakiel. Azazel. Yes, I know I made a mistake by trusting Ryu, but it's not my fault. Don't forget that we can never stop a woman in love. He said angrily, while Barakiel put on a smile like a certain cat. Barakiel. Why don't you go and comfort Gabriel, since for her you are only her brother and she doesn't see you as a man. He said angrily, which made Azazel furious. Azazel. Look carefully Barakiel, I know very well that Gabriel fell in love with Ryu, you don't have to rub it in my face. He said annoyed. That's the problem, it's the reason why your beloved died. She committed suicide when she saw that you are nothing more than a vulgar beast who sleeps with others. That's why she wanted to be with Gabriel, because he reminds her of your beloved who died, because she didn't want to see your disgusting face. Said Barakiel. Azazel. You're an idiot. He said annoyed. Barakiel. So, at least I know that your dear father-in-law took your daughter. He said with irony. Azazel. At least. He couldn't finish speaking, as Barakiel kicked him in the oranges mocha style. Barakiel. He took a nuisance. You must know that a family is the greatest blessing in the world. If he took your daughter, he would know very well that you were going to neglect her. He said, since he knew how lazy Azazel is. But. You are not the cause of AKENO's death. The real one is the bastard Ryu Haidu. I'm going to kill him with my own hands. I hope you don't interfere or I'll kill you. Azazel. I'm sorry, but you can't kill him, since he is still our pillar. Said Azazel seriously. Barakiel. You think that if you show mercy, you could be close to Gabriel and make her fall in love with you? He said, since it was no news that Azazel liked Gabriel. Azazel. That's stupid. He said, to which Barakiel put on a smile that gave Azazel a chill. Barakiel. If he sent you to the brothers and before, now he'll make it 1,000 times worse, because if he couldn't with Ryu, why couldn't he try something with Issei? That was a hard blow that destroyed Azazel's hopes with Gabri. At that moment Surzich's magic circle appears with Ryu, who apparently recovered from his curse. Thanks to Phoenix's tears, he recovered. Surzich's, as much as he wanted to kill Ryu, couldn't because he was the pillar. He looked at Azazel for an answer as to why he hadn't come to the meeting and saw why. Surzich's. Azazel, this is very urgent, so I ask you to come talk about something very important. He said, to which Azazel sighed. But as if it were the fate of selfishness, he could see how Barakiel told Surzich's something. Barakiel. Surzich's, can I ask you a favor? He said, while lying on the ground. Surzich's. I'm sorry, but I must. He was interrupted by Barakiel. Barakiel. It won't take long for what I'll tell you. He said, to which Surzich's only thought about it for a moment. Tell me what favor? Surzich's said tired, the situation that his sister and the others were in left Surzich's tired. Barakiel. I ask that Gabriel become the intermediary between the demons and the German faction. He said, to which Surzich's thought it was a good idea. Surzich's? Why? I asked confused. Barakiel. I'll just say that Gabriel would be better, since there was no secret between both sides. He said, to which Azazel knew that Barakiel should stay away from Gabriel, and that putting her near the Securitate would be fine. We'll see what else we can do. Surzich's said, turning his back to Barakiel, who looked at Ryu. Crackling holy lightning, he launched himself at Ryu, who was in shock, but he didn't expect that Barakiel would be easily caught by the ice prison. Since behind Surzich's Graphia had appeared in a magic circle. Barakiel. Fuck. Why does he protect them? Sooner or later he will end up betraying them all. Said Barakiel. Graphia. He is still the pillar. She said, to which Barakiel just laughed. Barakiel. The pillar for the moment, but what happens if Wilbert asks for the pillar to be someone else like his daughter or his brother-in-law Issei? He said, which confused those present. Surzich's. What do you mean? He asked confused. Barakiel. I'll explain it to you. Thanks to Ryu the high commands have privileges, but with Issei it would become fair. What I mean is that we will all have the same. He said, to which Surzich's and Azazel knew he was right. Azazel. But no one would support him. He said, to which Barakiel started laughing like crazy. Barakiel. What if I told you that one is Roygun, Leisha and Kiam? He said, to which Azazel knew that the three of them separately were nothing, but together they were a very different story. Azazel, just this once you can take Barakiel to the prison until he calms down. The situation is really bad," said Serziches. "Hey, I should kill him, he tried to kill me, the pillar of the fac." He didn't finish because Serziches hit him with a punch so fast, but with contained force. Ryu covered his face and fell to the ground, his eye was bleeding because the blow had burst one of his eyes. "Rafia will give you Phoenix tear. Disrespect me again, I will send you to Tartarus for a month to change that attitude. You heard me," Serziches said coldly while increasing his power of destruction. Ryu got scared and kneels before Serziches. "Forgive me. I didn't mean to offend you, Mao-sama," Ryu said in fear while Serziches looked at Ryu with disgust. How did he become so blind? But Azazel could only put magic handcuffs on him, to which Barakiel had an annoyed look. "Barakiel. At least she won't be near someone like you," he said, to which Azazel gritted his teeth in frustration. "Azazel. I better take you to prison, you're very drunk." I didn't want to listen to Barakiel anymore. It is said that children and drunks always tell the truth, as has been proven how Barakiel treated Azazel and kept his sister Gabriel away from a womanizer. End of flashback. Streets of Seinen. Issei could be seen about to summon the booster gear, which saw the scene of his cousin Rito's couple kissing his cousin's best friend. Issei. "So they just played with my cousin's heart, but I don't care what they do," he muttered annoyed while he watched the girl enter the Yuki residence. "They're not worth it, you told me so yourself, cousin," he said, only for Issei to see his two cousins by his side. "Issei. Rito, why do you still let them stay in your house?" he said annoyed. "Rito. I'm not that bad, besides I plan to restart my life somewhere else," he said, to which Issei knew he was saying the same words he once said. "Issei. Seriously, I'm a bad influence on you," said the brown-haired boy, while Rito and Mikan laughed at what their cousin said. "Mikan. I don't think you're a bad influence, but you are an airhead, cousin," said Mikan, as if it were the most normal thing in the world. Issei. Hey, pretending to feel offended, but not realizing that they caught the attention of several people. While they were talking, a subject in armor could be seen, who was communicating through what looked like a hologram, revealing the figure of a child between 12 or 14 years old. Issei. How about Rito giving your beloved city one last spin? He asked, to which Mikan knew he wanted to talk to Rito about what happened. Mikan. I'm sorry, but I have to go, because if I'm not home, they're going to suspect me, said Mikan somewhat nervously. Rito. Take care, Ni-chan, I'll write to you, he said, to which Mikan nodded. Issei. Wait, Mikan, I'll give you this when you want to visit us, he said, while handing her a paper, which was a pamphlet. The pamphlet could transport a person to Germany, to be more exact, to the Haidu residence, which was very helpful. Time after. A few hours had passed, during which Rito and Issei saw some places in Seinen. Issei. So they traded you for your best friend, some of them, said Issei, to which Rito just stared in front of him at a park. Rito. Don't you think it's funny, cousin, they changed me because I wasn't taking the next step, said Rito through tears. Issei. I don't understand, but it was all of them, he said curiously. Rito. Not all of them, since one stayed by my side, he said, as he approached the swing, on which he sat, and Issei did the same on another. Issei. It's funny, isn't it, that our life will change in a park, he said with a small laugh, which infected Rito. Rito. Even though mine was practically in the bathtub at my house, he said, to which Issei was right. Issei. You're right, one got involved with the extra normal and the other with the supernatural, he said, to which Rito had to agree. Rito. You're right about that, but that's life like there in Germany, said Rito, to which Issei didn't think twice. Issei. In itself it is strange at first, since you are not in your place of origin, but it is also good, since you can live a new life in a different place, said Issei. Rito. How to have a family? Rito asked, which made Issei curious. Issei. What are you talking about? He said confused. At that point Rito takes out his cell phone and opens his Facebook profile, where he seemed to be looking for a specific image. Upon finding the image, Issei could be seen next to a white-haired silver-haired girl, and in the middle girl, who was eating her ice cream, but in the comments he saw one of Saji. My friend is already making his new life and he is doing it in a big way. After finishing reading the comment, you could see a trembling Issei, as he was afraid of what Mio, Momo, Mocha, Sayori and Nix could do to him. Issei. I'm more than dead, he said scared, which made Rito confused by his cousin's attitude. Rito. What are you talking about? He said confused. Issei. It's better that you don't know, he said, while imagining the Vietnam War that was coming upon him. Greg. I will remember you as the best wielder, he said through his mental link, while a vein appeared on Issei's forehead. Issei. You're going to pay for this, Dreg. he shouted in his thoughts as he watched a drake boy roll from one side to the other. Rito. I think I should have kept quiet, he said as he watched his scared cousin shaking like a chicken. The conversation continued for a while, but Rito could be seen laughing at all the adventures his brother has had, as well as making a mental note not to make his cousin's mates angry, especially Mocha. Rito. But cousin, you didn't tell me that Mocha had died. He said confused. Issei. That's a long story. He said, to which Rito understood the message, since Issei didn't want to talk about it. But from one moment to the next, Issei's gaze took on a serious look, as well as giving off a great killing instinct. Issei. Get out of wherever you are. He said out loud. From the shadows emerged a subject in armor and with long hair of a pale green hue, and another that of a teenager between 12 or 14 years old. Tell me who this person is, Rito. He asked. It was more of an order to Rito. The aforementioned began to tremble. Rito. He is my. Lala's ex-guardian was interrupted. Issei. I'm your grandfather and you're a brat. He said, which took the two present by surprise, while the two present knew that a grandfather looked older. This bothered the two present, but more the one who seemed like a bodyguard to the way he addressed his king. Aston. Have more respect for his majesty, my name is Aston, grandpa. Said Lala's guinea pig, which made Issei twitch in the eye. Issei. You see that I care, you spoiled young man. He said mockingly, which made the two present have a vein on their forehead. Aston. What do you mean, spoiled young man? He asked exclaimed annoyed to Issei. Issei. Do you think I care about you, guinea pig? He said mockingly, since he actually told him a cruel truth. Aston. You must have respect for his king Gid Lucian Deviluk. I proudly present his majesty. Issei. I only respect those who deserve respect, but he doesn't even deserve my respect. He said as if it were nothing, to which Gid got upset but decided to ignore him. Bid. Anyway Rito, why did you decide to leave, since you are my daughter's fiancé, ignoring Issei? Rito. I think Zaston informed you that your daughters found someone else, right? He said seriously, to which Zaston turned away, since it was true. Bid. But they are immature, but people often make mistakes. He said, which annoyed Rito, but before he said anything, Issei extends his hand as a stop sign, which Rito reluctantly accepts. Issei. It seems that you don't understand that you are being selfish with the happiness of your daughters, of course that can be called happiness. He said coldly. Bid. What do you care, grandpa? He said, to which Issei just laughed. Issei. I care since I'm his cousin, not his grandfather, but I really enjoyed insulting you brats. He said with a smile. You could see Issei, the current Sekiryuite, who had the booster gear activated, and in front of him was Gid, the king of the universe or emperor. Issei. So my cousin must stay here in Seinen, sacrificing his happiness while Drake's voice was heard, which was increasing his power. Bid. That's right. He must marry my daughters. It was my decision. And it is absolute. No matter what situation they live in. Said Gid. Issei. Even though his daughters and the girls who supposedly claim to love my cousin continue to deceive him just like that. Issei growls angrily. Bid. They're just kids, they make mistakes often. He said as if it were nothing. Issei. Like that, but they don't know that they're hurting their loved ones. He snorted angrily. Bid. That's right, so stop fighting. Said Lala's father. Issei. You know, I want to make you no despair. He said, but Gid didn't notice that he had been transported to a pocket dimension, along with Zaston and Rito. Bid. Don't make me laugh, brat. He said arrogantly. But no, Issei summoned the boosted gear that started to produce many boosts. In the blink of an eye he hit Gid with a punch to the face, sending Gid rolling across the ground. That surprised Zaston, since there was no human who was able to defeat Gid. Bid. Damn brat. Said Gid as he got up from the ground while wiping the blood coming out of his broken lip. Issei. I hope you like my gift. He said with a smile, before seeing a ball of energy appear. Bid. What are you planning? Gid asked. Issei. This. He said with a smile, while the attack went straight to Gid, but from one moment to the next Drake's voice was heard. Drake. Reflect. The attack is deflected in a certain direction. In which Gid saw that he was going to go to Rito's house where his daughters would be. Curse you! Exclaimed Gid, gathering enough power to try to stop the attack. When launching said attack, which was going at a surprising speed, something happened that no one saw coming. Drake. Penetrate. He said, which caught everyone's attention. They were going to see firsthand one of Drake's fearsome abilities, which Gid saw in slow motion as Issei's attack destroyed his own attack, which was very powerful, as if it were breaking a branch from a tree. The attack continued on Rito's house, to which Issei watched this with a smile. Issei. I didn't tell you I was going to make you no despair. He said with a serious look. Before Gid could do anything to stop the attack, Issei's attack destroyed the pocket dimension house, causing Gid to be in shock. His daughters had died. All because of him. Issei. Be enraged, let me know the fury of the king of the universe, or was he emperor? Issei said mockingly, as he watched Gid's aura grow rapidly. He's dead. Gid roared, wrapped in lightning to launch himself against Issei, grabbing his face to throw him to the ground, creating a gunpowder explosion. Gid proceeded to start throwing punches at Issei's face, causing a lot of damage. But Issei had a smile on his face, while Drake decided to use an Albion skill. Drake. Divide. He began to divide Gid's power, but Lala's father did not notice this, since the fury he had was blinding his senses. Soon little by little he felt that his blows weakened until his fists no longer caused much damage to Issei, who smiled. He extended his fist towards Gid's face and glowed. Ultimate Dragon Shot. Soon enveloped Gid in a shot of crimson energy that flew out to hit a building on the side, creating an explosion of fire and debris. Issei tried to get closer, but Zaston launched himself with his sword to protect his emperor, but Issei only needed one kick, sending Zaston to the ground. This fight is between him and me. Don't get involved. Issei said coldly. This surprised Zaston, but at that moment Issei shot out at great speed towards Gid, then took his face with his hand and dragged him along the ground. Issei. It's time to make a strike. He said with a smile, while looking at some buildings. While Gid was in a sorry state being dragged around like a bowling ball. Zaston. What kind of being is he? He asked Rito, who calmly watched the fight. My cousin. I really didn't like depending on him, but given the situation, I had no choice but to call him. Thought Rito. He really wanted to win his freedom with his own hands, but he knew he would have no chance to beat Gid. Issei came out in an explosion of gunfire to knock Gid to the ground. Gid with effort got up and jumped towards Issei to shoot with his hand a beam of power that engulfs Issei. Gid smiled, believing that he killed Issei, but the brown-haired boy smiles behind Gid to kick his ass, sending Gid to hit a building, causing it to collapse. Right. He is the host of true domination. He replied to Zaston. Returning to the fight, Gid could be seen getting up from the ground with difficulty, but then Issei stood in front of him. Issei. I feel sorry for you, Ray, but those who try to subdue those I consider family, mess with me. He said seriously, while a sphere was seen in Issei's hand, but before he could say anything he brought it closer to his face. Issei. Those who consider themselves the center of the universe, I give them a lesson in humility. He said, before hitting Gid in his stomach. He began to beat Gid with his fists, each blow made Gid see memories. Slowly desperation consumed him, he was too much for him. Soon by instinct, Gid was in the fetal position, he no longer wanted to fight, he had lost his desire to fight, causing Issei to look at him with disgust. Issei. You didn't say you were going to kill me, where is that trash pride? He said annoyed. I didn't want this. Issei had made the emperor himself cry. Issei. You must know that to be great, you first have to be small, humility is the basis of all true greatness, he said seriously, before turning around, while walking away. That phrase made Gid understand that every being, no matter how small or weak, can do great things. Issei. I win, so I'm taking my cousin with me. If I find out that you're using my family, I'll make it look like this was child's play. He said, which scared Gid. Soon Issei deactivated the pocket dimension, there everyone was as before he fought. Otu-sama. Soon Gid saw Lala and the other goats running towards Gid. I didn't kill his daughters, the place we fought was a pocket dimension that was a replica of the place. I simply wanted to see the great power he claimed to have, and apparently, it was just words. Issei said. This confused Gid's daughters, as well as some other girls, to which Gid barely got up. Pocket dimension? Gid asked confused. Issei. That will be for the next time we see each other. He said with a laugh, while signaling Rito to come closer. Lala? Who are you anyway? She asked seriously, while Issei could only let out a laugh. Rito. Lala, he's my cousin. He said seriously, which left Lala petrified. Lala? But your cousins are very busy. She said confused. Rito. That's right, but my cousin Issei is a little different, since my cousin is not tied to the faction alliance. He said normally. Nana. What do you mean pervert? Said Lala's younger sister. Issei. I'd better explain it to you, the alliance is for example a kind of government, but I am tied to another government, since both are independent of each other. He said, to which Gid understood what he meant, as did the sisters. In which both are enemies. Said Gid, while sitting on the ground. Issei. Yes and no, what I mean is that we don't need anything from them, but for them we are a nuisance, since they need to subdue us, so that we help them with their stupid problems. He said as if it were the most normal thing in the world. Yui. What is the name of the side you belong to? I asked curiously. Issei. It is known as the Germany faction. He said seriously, which Yui and those who were human did not know that Germany had people as strong as Issei. Run. He wasn't the terrorist. Said the idol scared. Issei. Until they recognize me, but leaving that aside, I belong to the supernatural. If it is called the Germany faction, it is because it is located there. I explained to them, but in that Rito just sighs, drawing everyone's attention. Rito. By the way cousin, we must go find you a house. He said, which made Rito's ex-harem freeze, but Lala was scared, since Issei threatened her in the past, if she cheated on Rito, he would make her no suffering. Lala. You shouldn't go back home, Lala said nervously. Issei. I'm on vacation. He said without hesitation, that scared her even more. Minutes before, in another place, nearby. You could see on top of a building what looked like two people, more specifically a black-haired man and a blonde-haired woman, whom they saw when Rito, Zaston, Gid and Issei disappeared, but they did not recognize the latter. It seems that I ended up breaking Emperor Gid's fighting spirit, said the black-haired man, seeing that when they reappeared Gid was in the fetal position. He's strong, we wouldn't stand a chance against him, said the blonde-haired girl. You're right Yami, but he is indeed to be feared, even though his appearance proves otherwise, said the black-haired man to the blonde-haired woman who was none other than Golden Darkness, named Yami. Maybe we should get away from him a little and find out more about him. We don't know much about him, and fighting would be stupid. It seems your target has a powerful bodyguard, he said to Yami who looked expressionless. I saw that he knew each other, as if he were part of the family. Yami? Yes, and they seem to be familiar, too, she said in her usual expressionless voice. Haha, you're right, and besides, he's leaving, he said, which caused Yami to be in shock for a moment. The black-haired man knew that Yami was not honest with herself, maybe she did not cheat on Rito, but he was afraid that she was going to be the only one who would reject him, since she is just a weapon. You are free to go with me to hunt him. If not, then good luck, he said, but Yami grabs the sleeve of his trench coat. Is something wrong Yami? Said the black-haired boy. Yami? He's my target, not yours Kuro, and you're after Lala's head, she said expressionlessly, but anger could be heard in her tone of voice. Kuro? Don't tell me that the fearsome assassin is jealous that her mate was stolen, hahaha, he said, while bursting out laughing. But I dodged the attacks of Yami who was blushing. Kuro laughed, dodging the multiple tendrils of blades coming from Yami's hair. She really wasn't honest with herself. Kuro? Well, you should start following him, since it seems like they're saying goodbye, he said, to which Yami turns to look, only to realize that Rito and his familiar are staying there, while Gid and Rito's ex-mates go to Rito's house. Yami didn't say anything and jumped from roof to reach Rito. Kuro sighs, Yami may really be a feared assassin, but deep down she still has feelings. Kuro? We'll see each other soon Yami, he said, as he watched Yami leave in search of Rito. Streets of Seinen. Rito and Issei could be seen walking calmly until Issei heard what sounded like jumping, in addition to the presence of something approaching. Issei. Something is approaching us, he said, which caught Rito's attention. Rito. What are you talking about? He said, confused. Issei. I mean her, he said, while pointing to a light pole where Yumi was standing, who was staring at the two of them. Rito. Yumi, he said, unable to believe it. Yumi? Rito-kun, said Golden Darkness. This left Rito surprised, since she didn't cheat on him, but it was difficult to say goodbye, that's why she lied. Rito. What are you doing here Yumi? He asked his killer. Yumi. I won't let you go, since you are my target, she said, to which Issei laughed. Issei. So she wants to be your girl, he said while laughing, while Rito and Yumi blushed, while Rito tried to deny it, but no words came out. Yumi didn't say anything, because she was embarrassed. Issei. If you want to come with us, go get your things, he said normally, while Rito just gave a sigh of defeat. Yumi just turned to look at Rito to tell him that it wasn't necessary, to which he understood immediately. Rito. Cousin, there's no problem with a spaceship staying in your house, he said nervously, to which Issei opens his eyes wide. Issei. Maybe we can hide her at Mio's father's house, he said normally, to which Rito knew he was referring to one of his cousin's mates. Rito. Your house must be big, he said, while remembering the mansion that was in Kuo and the taste of his fiancées when they referred to a small house. He said with an anime-style drop behind his head. Issei. What can I say, that's how I love them, he said with a smile. After giving the location point to Yami's ship, these two decided to leave, while all this was seen by Kuro. One day later. One day after AKENO's death, Barakiel had fallen into depression, to the point that he ended up falling into alcohol, and even gave up on Grigori. Azazel had tried to beg him, but Barakiel did not listen to him. With the death of AKENO by Ryu's curse, his reputation began to fall a lot. Houses like Phoenix and the Grimoire paid large sums of money to Issei to help him, but as always he refused. AKENO's death was sad, but that was the mistake they had to take care of, not him. He had already done enough for them. He had done everything possible to ignore those messages and money. For the Phoenix he simply returned the burned money, the same with the Grimoire. While Ryu's ex-harem learned that AKENO had died from the severity of the curse, being emotionally weak, she died from the curse. Something that Ria suffered when she lost her best friend and queen. AKENO was like her sister, and now she died without having the chance to say goodbye. Kaneko and Asia had cried a lot that day. But what hurt them the most, as Issei had given his blood to Lefei and Serafal and not to them. Meanwhile, in a room in that hospital, Rias could be seen, who seemed to be connected to different devices, but when she opened her eyes, she could see her parents, her brother, as well as Leisha Astaroth with a look of worry. Rias? What are you doing here, Leisha-san? I asked curiously. Leisha? I came to see you, to find out how you were. She said sincerely. Although seeing you like that, it's good that I didn't fall in love with that pig in human skin. Said Leisha with a sigh. At first she saw how handsome Ryu was, but when she saw his attitude, she had decided not to have anything to do with him. And now that AKENO died and the rest are suffering for him, she was glad she hadn't fallen at his feet. Rias? Damn. She muttered annoyed, to which Leisha only smiled arrogantly. Leisha? What can I say? Besides, it seems to bother you that Issei is with Mio, Momo, Sayori and Mocha. She said mockingly. Rias? You're a. She couldn't finish speaking, as she felt an electric shock where Ryu's mark was. Look Rias, now you're mature, as one of your old friends from the past, I advise you to stop being childish. You're dying, not only you. But your group too. You've already lost your queen. It won't be long until you lose the rest to that man who saw them as nothing more than trophies. He simply didn't care if your queen died. Said Leisha. Rias? That's not true. She refused to believe it, since a part of her still loved him. Then Alana. Daughter, you are doing a lot of harm to yourself. She said in her thoughts, while she saw her daughter blindly loving someone who does not love her. Leisha. You are hurting yourself. It seems that your own love, sorry, what you call love, is causing you a lot of harm. She said with a look of disappointment. Rias? That's not true. She denied it again. Well. I guess your parents spoiled you a lot. I came with the hope that you would mature so I could save you, but well I give up. Don't regret it. Said Leisha getting up from her chair but Venelana. Wait please, aren't you going to help her? Venelana exclaimed. It's the parents' job. Besides Rias stopped being my childhood friend a long time ago. Rotten attitude irritates me. Please don't call me again. Leisha said coldly to Venelana. Because of Venelana, he had spoiled Rias so much to the point of ruining their friendship. She let out a sigh, taking off the necklace that was a gift from Rias when they were children. Goodbye. Rias. Leisha whispers, giving Rias her old necklace. Leisha approached her to give her one last hug and to whisper something in her ear. Leisha. Everything you love will die if you don't mature. She told her, to which Rias was shocked as she watched Leisha stand in the doorway. Since through the blood of her ancestor Astaroth, she knew the answers to the past, present and future, as she knew much more before Issei was the current Sekirute. Leisha. I hope to see you at my engagement party, ex-friend. She said with one last smile. He soon left, leaving Rias crying, while Zeoticus could not bear it any longer. Slap. Then Alana was silent as she received Zeoticus's slap. Zeoticus. Venelana, this has gone too far, with your stupid advice see what you have done. He scolded his wife, to which Venelana looked away. Venelana knew this very well, since according to her, power is everything, but sometimes that power that is full of desire for it is incomplete. Venelana. Of course it is. She said, to which Zeoticus put on a serious look. Zeoticus. You don't know anything, but you know what would happen if Rias finds out that Mio is her own cousin. He said, which left Serziches and Rias in shock. When I saw the Kromkruch carrier, I had a bad feeling but. You never listened to me, now Rias is going to die because you filled her head with your shit. If she dies. I will kill you myself. Zeoticus growls. Then Alana. You are a scoundrel, he had the. She was interrupted by Zeoticus. Zeoticus. Power, don't come to me with that, we all know that his power is incomplete, since his brother Issei is far superior to him. He said, to which Venelana gritted her teeth in frustration. Rias. It must be a damn joke that Mio is my cousin. She denied in her thoughts. Zeoticus. I defended you when Wilbert called you self-interested, but it seems he was right. He said, since the relationship with his brother went down the drain and the reason was right before his own eyes. You made me betray my brother, and now I have to live with a woman who would not hesitate to betray me for power, a useless son. Zeodicus whispers as he leaves the room, not before looking at Venelana. I'll sign the divorce papers. Zeodicus whispers as he leaves the room. While Venelana just grits her teeth in frustration, Serziches remembers that advice his father gave him when he was a child. Zeodicus. A brother's duty is to always take care of his brothers, one another. He said, to which Serziches already knew what he meant. Meanwhile, Laisha Astaroth could be seen walking through the halls very calmly, but then she passed by Asia's room and leaned against the wall while listening to Issei's conversation with Asia. Laisha. You are going to be reincarnated as Issei's daughter, you are going to go to paradise, or you will return years later to help the future Sekiruite as his advisor. She said, while looking at the ceiling of that hallway. Returning with Venelana. Venelana. That's right, Mio is your cousin Riaz. She said angrily, while Riaz refused to believe it. How is this possible? Is Otusama Mio's father's brother? Riaz growls while Serziches just sighs. They wish things would be easy, but that would be asking too much. He felt like a useless person for not saving Riaz. Serziches. That's right, but he gave up his right as a Grimoire since they saw him as someone weak, since he did not inherit the original power of the Grimoire. He said, to which Riaz opened her eyes wide. Riaz? Like Saraerg? I asked. Venelana. He inherited the power of the Demon King, he is able to use a burst of lightning, these are capable of molding, he did not obtain the original power of the Grimoire. He said, since the Grimoire power was like that of a Cupid, he could make any woman fall in love, but it was more for single women. But now let's put this aside, mother, you were able to convince Issei-kun to save Riaz. Serziches said. He refuses to lift a finger for us, I even gave him all my fortune, but he ended up burning all the money I sent him, the same thing did to Phoenix. Riaz. Are you the only one who knows the cure? She asked her brother, but he just nodded. Serziches. That's right, it's only a matter of time before all of you die. It was difficult for him to say this. Riaz. What happened to Ingvild? She asked curiously, since Ingvild was like her younger sister to Asia. Serziches. She's out of danger from the curse, but her illness relapsed. He said, to which Riaz just cries. Riaz. This must be a fucking joke. She refused to believe it. Serziches. It seems that Issei used transfer to maintain Ingvild's defenses, but without it, it was only a matter of time before he relapsed. He said seriously. Riaz remembered how Issei always touched Ingvild's head like messing up her hair, those were the moments when Issei transferred his power to her, he always took care of them without anyone knowing. It is said that hate can consume all positive feelings if the hate reaches the heart and is directed at the person who will become the recipient of all this hate. Riaz. He always looked after us, but because of your damn advice. She whispered angrily, before giving him a look that would scare the bravest of his own mother. You ruined my future, I hope the worst happens to you, I hate you, I hate you. He tried to attack Venelana, but Serziches put her on the bed while the doctors rushed to sedate her, and Serziches took the opportunity to get her out of the room. Venelana was in shock at everything that was happening. Mother. I hope you don't think about filling my son with ideas about power over the family, because if I find out, I will send you to Tartarus. Serziches shouts, already tired. This should stop already, the Grimoire family was falling apart because of Ria's mental state and her curse, Zeodicus's divorce. The last thing Serziches wanted was for his son to follow in Venelana's footsteps. Venelana was frustrated to learn that her children were against her, so she left the room angrily, while the doctors gave Riaz a sedative. But when he went out he could see a girl with brown hair, orange like Irina's, who passed by him, but the girl's presence was fearsome. Venelana. Who was she? She asked curiously, while turning to see where the girl had gone, only to see her get lost in the hallways. While a memory came to his mind of how an exorcist saved his life. Venelana. It can't be her. She said, unable to believe it. Change of scene. Issei's home. The girls continued with their chats while Issei had the cell phone in his hand, it was a call from Sona. Is Issei okay? Said Mio, attracting the girls' attention. Issei sighs to turn off his cell phone. It's nothing, I have to get some fresh air. I won't be long. Said Issei. With Issei. After leaving your home to get some fresh night air. He heard from someone that the underworld was in a mess as the Grimoire house was breaking from the inside and the news that Barakiel had tried to kill Ryu, but Serziches and the leaders sent him to prison to calm him down. The inhabitants of the place demanded an answer from the leaders and there was none. Idiots. I warned you and you never listened to me. Issei whispers until he smelled two odors. Come out, I know they are hiding. Issei ordered. Issei had emerged from the shadows, but the second person left Issei with his eyes wide open. Issei. What do you need from me, Issei? He asked tiredly. Issei. I wanted to see if you could help me. He said, while performing the legendary technique known as Dogiza. Issei, seeing this, just put on an annoyed look while he looked at the second person. Issei. This must be a joke. He said in his thoughts, while watching all this with a vein on his forehead. I guess it's for one of the girls. Is it Asia? Issei said coldly. I know. That you gave Sona Kaichu and Arthur-san your blood to save her. AKENO-senpai died and Asia is vomiting all day. I can't stand her like this. Asia doesn't deserve to die like this. Please brother. Issei couldn't finish begging because Issei interrupted her. I gave them my help and they refused to accept it. Sona and Arthur were the only friends I trusted, not like you. Besides, it's the leader's mistakes, not mine. Issei growls. Issei. But brother, she truly regrets everything she did. She said, since Issei knew that Asia was like a sister to Issei. Issei. I won't do it, she has made many mistakes, you should know very well. He said coldly. Besides, what are you doing here Vasco Strada? He said to the person who accompanied his sister. Before Vasco could speak, Issei, angry, grabs Issei by the neck. Save Asia or I will tell everyone that she intends to start Chaos Brigade. Issei roared already angry, but Issei kneed her in the stomach, causing Issei to fall to the ground. Choose anyone over your blood family. You are not so different from Ryu. Let me tell you something Issei. I warned you a long time ago that any mistake I make, no matter how small or big, you must handle it. Issei growls. Asia was your little sister, right? Then why didn't you protect her from Ryu? Issei said, making Issei grab her stomach while crying. I feel sorry for you. You are not capable of protecting those you truly love. Issei said coldly to turn his back on Issei and look at Vasco. I won't ask, what are you doing here, Strada? Issei said seriously. Vasco. Leisha sent me, she said that it's time for 3 girls who were friends from the past to see each other again, and I brought you something that belongs to Marana, you can give it to her. She said, while throwing him what looked like a katana. Vasco. Tell her it was a pleasure to have her as a student. She said, to which Issei could see the katana with a complicated look. Issei. I'll tell him, but I can ask him a favor. He said, while Vasco looked at him curiously. Vasco. If it is within my possibilities, I will accept. He said, to which Issei just smiled. Issei. You can hand Marana over to the altar. He said with a small smile. Vasco. It will be a pleasure to do so. He said with a smile. Issei watched this with pain in her eyes, knowing that her brother had refused to help her. Issei. You already promised, you can't back out. He said with a smile, since now he could propose to Marana without fear. It's time to leave, I look at Issei. You should go, Asia could die at any moment and it would be sad for Asia to die alone in the room. Take advantage of that moment to go see her for the last time. Issei said about to leave as it started to rain. Why? Why are you abandoning me brother? Issei shouts causing Issei to be silent. I never did it. You are the one who abandoned the family in the end. The moment you and Ryu did your thing, we would stop being brothers. The only thing that tied us was blood. Nothing more and nothing less. Issei said as he went home, leaving Issei on the ground getting wet from the rain. While Vasco watched all this with a look of disappointment, to which Vasco only created a magic circle under Issei. Vasco. I hope this small favor will be of help to you, he said, as he watched Issei disappear. Meanwhile Issei could only watch as she was transported to the underworld, in front of the hospital where the person she considered her sister was. Issei. I can't leave her alone. She said, as she got up from the ground while running through the hospital corridors. He had arrived at the room the moment he opened the door. Georg. Issei saw that Asia had finished vomiting blood into the bucket, she looked bad, she was pale, her eyes had a slight shine, and she was sweating a lot, and the purple veins had reached from her chest to her neck. Issei ni. Said Asia looking at her older adoptive sister. Issei. I'm here Amato. He said, while placing a chair near Asia's bed and then proceeding to sit down. Asia. You shouldn't have gone looking for Issei to help me against this curse. She scolded her adoptive older sister. But. He is the only person who can save you. Issei said, although Asia will finally stop loving Ryu, the curse had reached deep into her heart. Asia. Issei ni, you should know that Issei already has a life made, we are only his past, we have to leave the past behind and continue with our lives. She said, to which Issei knew she was right, but still refused. Issei. I just don't want to lose my family, my friends. She said while breaking into tears. Asia. Sometimes it's not bad to be selfish, but you should know that you can't have everything. She said, to which Issei nodded. And he also has Issei who is your brother, your real brother, surely in the future they would reconcile. Said Asia with an innocent smile. Issei. But I want you to be there with me. She said, while trying to make Asia reconsider so that she would fight against the curse. Asia. No, since I want to see my parents on the other side, that is if I have a chance to go to paradise. she said, to which Issei knew one of Asia's dreams. He soon saw that Asia's vital signs were already at their critical point. While Asia was tired, Issei helps her to lie down on the bed while she was crying. He began to caress her head. He wanted to curse Issei, Ryu, everyone. Asia didn't deserve that, she didn't deserve to die like that. Asia looked tiredly at Issei. Issei, I'm sleepy. Can you sing me that song that you always sing to me? I want to hear it one last time, said Asia. Issei. Of course Amado, I would like to sing to you, he said, while he covered her one last time. She sang, while watching Asia close her eyes, while a small smile appears on her face. She could only sing, while she continued crying, while Issei could only imagine that Asia could reunite with her parents. In the end, he was left caressing Asia's body with the sound of beep echoing in the room. In the end, it was karma, right? In another room. A very dark landscape was seen, without a light, but the voice of a girl with purple hair could be heard. She could be seen in a fetal position, while tears could be seen falling through that space of darkness. Ingvild. Why was I an idiot? She asked herself mentally. You've really become annoying, brat, said a voice that was very familiar to Ingvild. Ingvild. It's you Dreg-sama, where are you? She asked the nothingness. Dreg. I don't have to show my body to a devil scum. I'm really disappointed that you, among all the people, betrayed Issei despite having done everything for you. Dreg's voice said with disappointment, while Ingvild could only lower his head. Ingvild. I understand, I know I was very stupid to have chosen Ryu instead of Issei, she said with her eyes. Dreg. You think that will fix anything, but at least you have help from the one who kidnapped you, he said as if nothing were happening, to which Ingvild could only raise his head. Unlike you, she doesn't let herself be influenced by Ryu's trash. Someone who is trustworthy and who would make him happy, said Dreg while an environment was shown to Issei having a date with someone that Ingvild never expected. Ingvild. But she disappeared, Issei-sama is supposed to have made her flee, he said, since the person was none other than Nyx. She could only watch as Issei took Nyx by the hand. He led her to the amusement park, where everything was fun for the two of them. From the roller coaster, knocked down the bottle tower and the crane machine to get a prize which was a stuffed animal. The plushie resembles a chibi Dreg, which made Ingvild hide his head between her legs and then hold his head with both hands. Ingvild. That's not true, she said, shaking her head and denying herself. Dreg. But unlike you, when he tried to make you smile, you pushed his hand away, you didn't even say thank you. Reproach Ingvild. Something that Ingvild could see among the memories of all the rejections to Issei. Dreg. Listen to me carefully. Now Issei is happy with the people who truly appreciate him. You are nothing to him. Nothing at all. Because to me, you are nothing more than a crawling snake. I hope you don't regret this life you've chosen. Alone in the darkness as you've always lived before meeting Issei, said Dreg. Ingvild. But he never did anything for me. It seems that Ryu's attitude rubbed off on Ingvild. Dreg. Hasn't he done anything for you? He asked Ingvild, but when he was about to answer, he gave you enough energy to keep your defenses high. The times he helped you overcome yourself. He shouted angrily at her. Something that Ingvild realized was true, she was always weak, and Issei helped him raise his defenses high to escape the curse. Dreg. What did Ryu give you? Just sex, nothing more. In Ryu's eyes you were nothing more than a piece of meat that he could easily throw away when he finds someone better. Ingvild. I never gave myself to Ryu-san. I may be a descendant of the Leviathan, but I'm not just anyone, she said, since Ingvild wanted to give herself to Ryu on their honeymoon. Dreg. Pathetic. The original Leviathan will be really disappointed. But you were going to give your first time to your fiance's sock anyway, weren't you? Those words were the straw that broke the camel's back. Which Ingvild remained silent about. Dreg. I thought so. Even so, you are a victim of the other curse just for being with Ryu, you would die slowly over time. Dreg began to tell Ingvild about Kromkruch's curse, as little by little the girls that Ryu claimed to love are dying, and Ryu does nothing to help him. Ingvild. That means he wasn't who I thought he was, she said, thinking that Ryu was going to free them, but it seems not. Dreg. It seems that you are trying to free yourself, but you still doubt yourself. But why, if you deeply love the dragon attempt? He said mockingly. Ingvild cried silently, she did not answer him. Issei was going to save you, but he realized that you love that man, so Issei focused on helping his true friends and family that he really appreciates. You can say goodbye to your life, said Dreg. Ingvild. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. She was interrupted by Dreg. Dreg. But you did it. I hope that when you are reborn, you don't make the same mistakes, he said seriously, to which Ingvild looked up. Ingvild. But I can't leave, at least without thanking Issei-sama, at least help me with that, after that I will die in peace, he said, while raising his face and begging Dreg. It's too late, Ingvild. He doesn't want to see you anymore. You'll never be able to see him. Drake said, and then his presence and voice disappeared. Ingvild silently fell to her knees as she cried. You could see what could have been a good life with Issei and not Ryu. One of them got tired, had a son, and died next to him of old age. It was the life she could have had if it weren't for her insecurity. Ingvild. I am and will be a stupid person, she said, tears falling from her eyes. Drake. It was a pleasure meeting you, I hope the afterlife treats you happily. He said, sadness could be heard in his voice. But Ingvild started screaming, it seems that her sacred gear started reacting with her feelings. Ingvild. I don't want to go, I don't want to go, I don't want to go. He said, while his sacred gear evolved. But it was too late as the darkness swallowed her completely, causing the little light that Ingvild had to disappear. Near dawn, human world, Fornius territory. You could see a beach, but more specifically a coast, on which you could see a cabin, which looked rustic. Lilitifa. I never tire of the view, she said with a smile, but loneliness could be seen in her eyes. The beach was the only place she liked to live, a way of saying that it was the only place where she could live in peace without anyone coming to bother her about things like in Lilith's underworld. You're right, it's a beautiful sight. Said a voice next to Lilitifa, who opened her eyes wide. Lilitifa. Screamed, as she jumped to the side and fell sitting on the ground. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to scare you. Said that girl extending her hand. Let me help you. He said giving his hand. Lilitifa. What is Marana doing here? Lilitifa said, taking Marana's hand. Marana. I can't come to see a friend. She said with a smile, while Lilitifa cleaned her clothes. The witch Lilitifa puts on a serious look while squinting to stare at Marana. Lilitifa. Marana, tell me why you need my help. She said seriously, but she was nervous since she was embarrassed to talk to people. Marana sighs. I came to talk to you. That life you live. I don't think it's right for you. Marana said seriously. Marana sighs. I came to talk to you. That life you live. I don't think it's right for you. Marana said seriously. Lilitifa. You should know that this is the only life I can give myself. She said timidly as Marana was staring at her. A better life. Talk about staying in the sand all your life. Tell me. Don't you want to see Issei and live by his side? Said Marana. Lilitifa. You know that Issei is my best friend, I don't see it that way. She said seriously, but inside every word hurt her. Lie. Afraid of breaking his heart because of your insecurity. If he continues living like this, it will be too late to recover Issei's love. Many girls have already lost their chance to be with him because of his brother. Said Marana. Lilitifa. That's bullshit. She couldn't continue speaking as she remembered the times Issei kept her company. But without realizing it, she began to cry because maybe she could deceive herself, but she could not lie to her heart. It's not too late. You can go back to Issei Lilitifa now, you deserve something better than this. Marana said lovingly while Lilitifa could not bear it any longer, she cried as she threw herself to hug Marana. Lilitifa. I'm scared. She said in a low voice while crying on Marana's chest. She may have been famous in the underworld, but in the human world, she was different as she was afraid of being criticized, so she looked for her food in the sea. Know that Issei would never criticize you. Issei is not like Ryu, since he is a sweet boy who puts his life aside for others. You and Issei will be happy together. Lilitifa. Yes, but what happens if he rejects me? She said in a low voice while continuing to hug Marana. Besides, he already has Momo. She said jealously. Issei would never reject you. And I'm sure Momo and others would be happy to share with you. He will have a place to belong, in a family. Said Marana happily. Lilitifa. What do you mean, the others? I asked confused as she separated from the hug. The witch Marana decides to explain to Lilitifa about Mocha's return since Momo had told her by phone. Lilitifa. But Mocha won't suck my blood. She was afraid of Mocha's vampire side. Marana. Haha, as if she were a vampire addicted to blood, she already controls her hunger. Said Marana. That's it guys. Thanks for watching and supporting us. See you in the next part.